we get these weird gift suspensions. I still have not figured out why. I'm following all the rules. Do me a solid. If you could help us hit the gift goals before we get that suspension, who the fuck knows when, where, how, but again, you know what to do. Don't forget about joining our Discord. You can find a link to the Discord in the link tree that's in my bio. While you're on over there, check out the link to the merch store. Whole bunch of new merch items, including If Not Us, Who? If Not Now, When? As we talk about the resistance. Additional ways to support the channel. You can find the various things that exist in the cyberspace. Everything is at Factsstillmatter. We do have a daily goal. We are crowdfunded here. Also, don't forget about the additional resources that exist within our Discord. You heard me talk a lot yesterday about our Do Something tour, and it's coming together. There are little things. Again, this community just continues to blow me away, the generosity and kindness, and everybody wants to help. And we will be leaning on you when the time comes. There's a channel dedicated for Do Something that exists in the Discord. You can find that. There's calls to action. There'll be resources available. We have an Instagram page now. In addition, there'll be more social media presence. So we're getting there. So thank you all. More details to come. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you. I love you all. Just like that. You guys help us get to that goal. So let's do... The problem is that they've changed the way the goal setting has worked. So I'm gonna have to just do this. It's all different, and you guys know me in things that are different and stuff. But anyway, I'll just do that, and then we'll move on. Again, thanks for being here. So I want to start with a couple things. First of all, got some feedback on yesterday's show when we played the sound from Sasha Riley, and as we discussed, right, we did not make any accusations. We are not making any allegations. We are only reporting on what we know. Now, we know that there's been no more additional corroboration of Sasha's story, but we believe victims, we believe survivors, we believe voices need to be heard. That's why we chose to play it. Now, what we are, I guess I thought about this after the show too, like what would Sasha would have everything to lose and nothing to gain by telling a story. So that's why we chose to tell it. And, you know, there's some things from a timeline perspective that may not necessarily track. But with that said, there's so much information connected to these things. And then every little bit of nugget that we hear over here sort of tracks with something we heard over there. And you put the networks together, the people involved, how big this is. So I just want people to be aware that we'll continue to cover it with diligence, and we will attempt to try to connect as many dots as we can. So I'll leave it right there. All right. So speaking of items related to the Jeffrey files, as we read yesterday, the Bill and Hillary Clinton have responded saying that we're not going to come and sit before Congress because apparently there were 8 subpoenas issued, but none to the president, the current president. And the Clintons responded saying, yeah, nope, we're not coming. So, you know, it's kind of like a page out of Trump's book. Say, just because you're going to tell me to do something doesn't mean I'm going to do it. So, you know, again, Bill Clinton's gone on the record saying, if you have anything connected to my name in the files, go ahead and release them. I'm not sitting here to defend Bill Clinton in any way. In any way, he used his power to manipulate Monica Lewinsky. There's no doubt about it. I think he's a despicable human being. I've not read anything in the e-files that have connected to him to any criminality. But if he's done anything, if he's participated in any of this shit, then put him like everybody else under the fucking jail. With that said, this has become political, of course. So James Comer went out yesterday through media training. Again, humbly speaking, I've got a bit of an advantage over lots of people because I was literally in media for a long time. So I was trained in media. How you say things, when you say things, where you say things, and the context in which you say things, right? So that's important when you're trying to dissect misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda, right? So what he's doing here is, well, he's lying to you, and I'll tell you why in just a second. So I want you to hear his statement. This was James Comer, who's the chair of the Oversight Committee. It was his committee that subpoenaed President Clinton and Hillary. Here you go. Here's his sound.
Bill Clinton not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner. We will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress. Yeah, so with that, be happy to answer any questions real quick.
Mr. Chairman, anybody? Mr. Chairman, will you roll out bringing Donald Trump in for an interview?
Well,
in this investigation?
President Clinton's...
I'm sorry, I'm going to pause for a second. This comment. Where was the resistance when the government forced us to stay inside for masks and vaccines? See, this is the point, and I mentioned this yesterday. I mentioned this yesterday. It's people like Maxed, right? I'm sorry. I like to keep the show flow, but it's things like this that we have to call out. Max is probably one of those people that thinks what happened on the streets of Minneapolis was justified. See, Max is one of those people that thinks COVID vaccines and mask mandates and people being directed to be part of public safety would be tyranny in Max's mind, but not masked agents running around the streets of American cities, capturing, kidnapping, detaining American citizens, and then ultimately ending one American citizen's life. The same people that Maxed is probably cheering on now were the pussy-ass bitches from 2020 that wouldn't wear a paper mask, but now they're fine. Now they're fine putting a cloth mask over their face. Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So I digress. Back to James Comer. Apologies, but that had to be called out.
Not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner. We will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress. Yeah, so with that, be happy to answer any questions real quick.
Mr. Chairman, anybody? Mr. Chairman, will you roll out bringing Donald Trump in for an interview?
Well,
in this investigation?
President Trump has answered thousands of questions about Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, I would say today, well, you all ask him questions every day. He answers questions.
Not in front of Congress, he hasn't, Jim.
Every day about Epstein.
Will you rule out?
Well, you can't bring in a current president of the United States, and you all know that.
Okay, so that statement right there. Do you think he's telling the truth, or do you think he's lying? When you say you can't bring in a sitting president, and then you all know that. See, that is a diversion tactic, right? When you say, well, you all know that, or when the president says, everybody says this, that is an attempt to distract. He is lying because, yes, in fact, a sitting U.S. president can be subpoenaed by Congress as established by Supreme Court precedent and historical practice. Enforcing compliance, especially for testimony, involves complex separation of powers issues, with presidents often asserting executive privilege or negotiating terms. Though Congress has strong tools like funding cuts if necessary, and courts have generally upheld legislative oversight. The Supreme Court has affirmed that presidents are subject to subpoenas in Trump versus Mazars, for example, but balances this with separation of powers requiring specific tests for assessing the necessity and scope of demands for presidential records. Sitting presidents like Richard Nixon in 1974 have been subpoenaed, and others like James Monroe have negotiated testimony to avoid appearing. The Mazars case focused on documents, not testimony. The Justice Department has argued a president can't be forced to testify before Congress, though courts haven't recognized absolute immunity from congressional inquiries. Presidents often resist by claiming executive privilege, but Congress can use powerful tools like withholding funding or pursuing legal challenges through courts to enforce subpoenas. So, James, why are you lying to people? Why are you lying? You are blatantly lying. And I go, people like Max, right? People like Max in here or other Trumpers, all the mediocre beta men think that I'm going to pick them. No, I'm not going to pick you. You're just not smart enough. Sorry, but I prefer intelligence. That's why I'm a sapiosexual. I appreciate brain power. So you're not going to get picked. But you're so gullible that you'll believe that. Why wouldn't you question James Comer for making that statement? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you question the statement that he just made that a sitting president can't be subpoenaed? Of course they can.
So, but President Trump has answered thousands of questions about Epstein. I bet today, at some point, some of you all will ask President Trump questions about Epstein. He answers those questions. To my knowledge, former President Clinton has never answered questions about Epstein, and we just had questions because, again, I think anyone would admit they spent a lot of time together while Bill Clinton was president and post-presidency. And again, no one's accusing the Clintons of any wrong.
You see what I mean? this is the deflection, right? This is the deflection. I interrupted this whole thing by babbling. I'm just going to play you the whole thing because it is just fucking wild.
Not showing up for his lawful subpoena, which again was voted on unanimously by the committee in a bipartisan manner. We will move next week in the House Oversight Committee markup to hold former President Clinton in contempt of Congress. Yeah, good job. With that, be happy to answer any questions real quick.
Mr. Chairman, anybody? Mr. Chairman, will you roll out bringing Donald Trump in for an interview?
Well,
in this investigation,
President Trump has answered thousands of questions about Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, I would say today, well, you all ask him questions every day. He answers questions every day about Epstein.
Will you rule out?
Well, you can't bring in a current president of the United States, and you all know that. So, but President Trump has answered thousands of questions about Epstein. I bet today, at some point, some of you all will ask President Trump questions about Epstein. He answers those questions. To my knowledge, former President Clinton has never answered questions about Epstein. And we just had questions because, again, I think anyone would admit they spent a lot of time together while Bill Clinton was president and post-presidency. And again, no one's accusing the Clintons of any wrongdoing. We just have questions, and I find it odd, not only they didn't show up, but that the Democrats on the committee who are so concerned about getting to the bottom of the Epstein investigation didn't even bother to show.
Mr. Chairman, in his letter to you, Mr. Chairman, President Clinton suggested that this was a Joseph McCarthy-style tactic to have him brought in front of this committee. How would you respond to that?
Who said that?
President Clinton, in his letter to you last night.
I mean, this is a thing that obviously the media is interested in, the American people are interested in.
Yeah.
He's never answered any questions, and the Democrats on the committee voted with the Republicans for Bill Clinton to come in. I mean, I don't ever remember a bipartisan vote to subpoena anyone. I've been on the Oversight Committee the entire 9 years I've been in Congress. This is the first one. So the Democrats were real eager to hear about Bill Clinton, and then somebody came along and told them they need to stand down. I've never seen a Democrat not show up for a deposition. The whole time I've been in Congress on the Oversight Committee, I've never seen a time when the Democrats never showed up. Yeah, when Hunter Biden came, there were 10 or 12 of them in there.
That's fucking wild. Well, Clinton spent a lot of time with Jeffrey when he was president and before. Well, my guy, I think I need to find this. This is a good time to bring it. I wasn't even thinking about this, but I'm just gonna show you guys something. I think you've seen this before. When we started to get documents, when we started to get the email threads through the House Oversight from the Jeffrey estate, right? We get this image. Each dot is an email thread released by the House Oversight Committee. Okay, each dot, all those blue dots, right? Then we go a little bit further, and we get so keep in mind, based on what James Comer just told you, the lies he just fucking told you. Then we get this, right? This is how many times Bill Clinton's name was mentioned in those emails. 512 out of 2,324. And then we get the amount of times that President Trump's name was mentioned in those same emails. Again, these are files that were dropped by the House Oversight, Democrats in the House Oversight Committee that they got from the Epstein estate. This is how many times President Trump was in there. 1,670 of the 2,324. But tell us again, James, the amount of times that President Clinton had conversations or interactions with Jeffrey. So you see, James, when you just lie, I mean, listen, you can lie to your base because they don't know any better. They'll just be like, okay. But you can't lie to us because we're smarter than you. And there's no doubt about that. This chat right here, the 1,100 people in here, minus a few, are smarter than you. If they were sitting across the table from you, they would cook you. They would embarrass you. They would make you curl up in the corner and run back to your moonshine still. That's how pitiful you are, James. And we see it. So I've been having a little back and forth, although there hasn't been much back recently from Mark Wayne Mullen. Mark Wayne Mullen, the senator from Oklahoma, is my new bitch boy. He is quite possibly the most ignorant senator ever. Guy doesn't know shit. I am starting to think that James Comer might be up there too. Again, I've always got a special place in my bitch boy heart for Mike Johnson, and we'll hear from him a little bit this morning. But James Comer may be my new bitch boy. Again, well, Ted Cruz is not stupid. Ted Cruz is a smart guy. He's just a fool. But Mark Wayne Mullen is just literally stupid. Anyway, I have to be careful what I say that. He's not the brightest bulb on the tree. Due respect to my blue dots in Oklahoma, Mark Wayne Mullen is from Oklahoma. Oklahoma is dead last in just about every category, like education and you name it. They're like they're dead last. Do I live in my mom's or grandma's basement? Max, that is so clever. You know, I can't believe. Did you come up with that insult all on your own, Max? Do you live in your mom's or grandma's basement? Bro, I'm 58. If my grandmother was still alive, she'd be like 129. My mother died when I was 21, but thanks for asking. I appreciate that. Bro, that's what's called projection. Okay? I want to let you know that. Anywho. So Mark Wayne Mullen and James Comer are moving up the list. But again, it's so easy to debunk. Yes, a sitting president can be subpoenaed. So MAGA, when he tells you that, and you know it's a lie, do you do anything? Do you say anything? So one of the things that I've been paying attention to, like when I go to these right-wing spaces, so you don't have to, you're welcome, is MAGA tends to speak in definitives. So they'll say guaranteed, or 100%, or everybody agrees. Well, that's not true when you say 100%, because that would then prove nothing. So I was in a space yesterday afternoon, and someone had said, I responded, I requested because I wanted to address it. And this particular person said that when ICE officers are in the midst of a situation where they need local police help, when they call 911, 100% of the time, gifting got suspended. Yeah, that's what happened. I don't even know why. Anyway, let's see if we win the appeal this time. 100% of the time, local law enforcement is not responding. Of course that's not fucking true. Of course, anybody with half a brain knows that's not true. And then when asked the question, because J.D. Vance said recently that ICE has absolute immunity, doubled down basically by the president because he didn't push back against it. So when the panel is asked that question, do you think that the ICE agent should have absolute immunity? They won't answer the question. They won't answer the question directly. Of course not. They won't. Let's see. Oh look, another paid dude. Hey, let's put this up there. Tiny piece. Let's do this. See. Hey friends, we have a goal today. Oh look, another paid dude. We have a goal today. You can find all of my various things on CA, on PP, and on the Vimo. They're all at Factsstillmatter. Let's make this manifest. Thank you, a tiny piece of the whatever. Anyway, my point is that when they speak definitively and you press them on that by saying things, of course it's not 100%. You know that's not bullshit. And then when pressed on, how do you feel about the vice president saying absolute immunity? And of course, their response is always, well, that's not what he meant by that. Or when J.D. Vance has gone on the record saying, we're going to be knocking on doors. And you press them on that and they won't answer. So they'll basically what you're saying is that we should let P3DOs and schmurderers and rapists get away with shit? I'm like, nah, nobody said that. The question was, are you okay with them knocking on doors, on everyone's door, just knocking on doors? And they're like, they won't answer the question. Point being, when you are in a position where you are constantly being lied to and you can't defend the bullshit, you have no choice other than to attempt to pivot, to attempt to distract, to attempt to move the goalposts. So we see you, MAGA. We see you. We see you and we got you. So speaking of ICE, I want to play a couple of, got some reporting on this for you. We've got some Department of Justice officials leaving the DOJ because of the way the investigation was expected to be handled. And as the show progresses today, we're going to talk about the French Revolution, because I found a really cool little documentary sliver that I'm going to play for you guys, because it tracks. It kind of, well, first of all, I don't think a lot of people know a lot about the French Revolution. The taking of the Bastille and the let them eat cake, Marie Antoinette. It's been attributed to her. We don't know definitively if she actually said it, but anyway, we'll get into that in just a bit. But Greg Bovino. So first of all, I just want to going to hear some sound from Greg Bovino. I'm a little distracted today, and then we're gonna talk about something that the president said just recently, because that's going to blow your mind. That we're suddenly now cheering on Iranian demonstrators. It's fucking wild. Let me see if I can find this sound from him. Okay, so this is Greg Bovino. We all know Greg, right? We all know Greg Bovino. Before you hear the sound, I want to show you some imagery. So this is Greg Bovino, as you know. Now, again, use your brain. Now, do you find anything glaringly similar? Like anything that maybe, if you're trying to distance yourself from, I don't know, historical references, then why would you dress like that? Interesting. Similarly, why would you dress like that? I mean, if you are, hold on. If you are trying to separate yourself, what is going on here? Sorry. If you're trying to separate yourself from these comparisons, then why would you make it so obvious for people to make that comparison? Okay? So I want people to think about that as I play this sound for you, because he's talking about, I want you to hear how he ends this interview. He's intentional? Absolutely, it's intentional. No doubt about it. And it's admiration, et cetera, et cetera. So again, this one, come on, bro. This one, come on. Like the brown belt, okay, sure. It's a different shoulder. All right? It's not a coincidence. Okay? So this is he was of course being interviewed on Fox News and talking about what happened. And there you go. Here you go. This is Greg Bovino.
What I would consider some pretty important intent. Did that individual have the opportunity? Yes. Did that individual take that opportunity? Yes. A 4,000-pound missile is not something anyone wants to face, especially in a split-second decision-making process in a very already inhospitable environment. Hats off to that ICE agent. I'm glad he made it out alive. I'm glad he's with his family. By and large, 90% of the public are happy to see us. They like to engage with us. They like to talk with us and find out about our missions and what we do. A lot of people ask about recruitment and things like that. But when you have that very vocal 5%, it actually scares the public. And, I actually felt sorry for the public in the Target store that day because it actually scared them.
Like what, dude? What? Now that you've seen that imagery of Greg Bovino, did he say anything about Ms. Good? Did he say anything about her? Like a 4,000-pound missile? This entire thing comes down to, we talk about this numerous times, right? When you have a particular belief set and what you're looking at goes against your belief set, right? You are stuck having to rely on your confirmation bias and your cognitive dissonance. So that's what we see. Literally looking at the same exact video. And I don't know if enough people are talking about this, because the argument that they want to use, the right wants to use, is that Renee Good was intentionally driving her vehicle at the officer. If that were the case, then why did the vehicle continue to go to the right when she turned her wheel? Because if it was coming right at him when he shot her, it would have continued to go right at him. Because our friends on the right don't think with much logic. Well, they don't think much. But how would that track? Because if she was literally going right at him, then how would she have turned the wheel? how would the vehicle have gone to the right? I mean, again, we don't need to revisit that. We've all seen the video. How would that happen? Does anybody want to answer that question? Why did the vehicle continue to go to the right? Are you going to now say that it was pointed that direction and it just continued straight? Because then that would defeat your entire argument anyway. So what is your pivot on this, right? How do you want to go through that? How do you want to explain that away? Anyway, that's Greg Bovino. So now here we are. There's been more incidences. We've seen more ICE officers on the street saying, haven't you learned your lesson? This is part of their strategy. Fear, civil unrest. We know we talked about this before, $100 billion recruiting campaign, geofencing, targeted campaigns to people who attend NASCAR events or go to gun shows or listen to patriotic podcasts. Those people are being targeted from a recruiting perspective for ICE. And by the way, I don't know if you know this, but I did some quick math, and it's hard to determine specifically, but we know on average, and I just use these two stark examples, for example, $36 per person from your taxes annually. $36 per person from your taxes annually go to support SNAP. $36. I'll say that again. $36. It's between $2,000 and $4,000 of your taxpayer dollars that go to the Department of Defense. It's roughly $1,100 that goes and supports ICE agents. Keep that in mind today as we discuss the offer that the president wants to make to Greenlanders. So again, $36 annually goes to fund SNAP. And our pro-lifers on the right think that's a bridge too far. But we're totally fine with between $2,000 and $3,000 to go to the Department of Defense and roughly $1,000 of your taxpayer dollars to go to fund ICE. But nothing to see here. Nothing to see. So I have to play some sound from Renee Good's former father-in-law. I was sitting. I had to listen to this multiple times because I was just like, okay, this guy knew her, former father-in-law, and he's a self-professed Trump supporter. So just this sound is quite disturbing for many reasons. But he was being interviewed by I think it's Aaron Burnett. His name is Timothy Macklin. And again, Renee Good's former father-in-law. Here you go. About
this, when you talk about the confusion, and you've been open, obviously, about your support for the president. When you look at the videos of what happened, and I'm sure they're very hard for you, Timmy, to watch if you've even been able to. But the Deputy Attorney General says that the Justice Department doesn't believe that there's evidence to back a criminal investigation, right? And nothing about charges or anything like that, just an investigation into what happened in terms of the ICE agents' actions. But they were, according to the prosecutors resigning today, pressuring them to investigate Renee's actions and Becca, her wife's actions. How do you feel about all that?
Well, I'm not blaming anybody. I mean, it's a hard situation.
You're not blaming anybody. Sounds like you're going to both sides this, aren't you? Your former daughter-in-law was gunned down in cold blood on a Minneapolis street. And you're not going to blame anybody?
All the way around. It's hard for for everybody involved. I mean, the ICE agent, at first I didn't see the footage where, he was actually, he was actually being ran. I mean, I seen the bump of the car hitting his legs. And so in a flash like that, it's hard to say how you would react. From my understanding that he had been through that before, maybe dragged or something. And so, like I said, it's just a hard situation for everybody. Becca, she's a great person as well. I mean, I don't have any enemies. I love everybody, and that's what the Bible tells us: love our neighbors as we love ourselves. But I think there's some bad choices, and the word says, "For the wrath of God will come upon the children of disobedience." And it's I don't blame ICE. I don't blame Rebecca. I don't blame Renee. I just wish that, if we're walking the Spirit of God, I don't think she would have been there.
What? It's a mother of his grandchildren. Wow. There's no line. Okay? There is absolutely no line. I don't know, bro. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about there, my friend, but that's wild. Full on MAGA. Everything, if she walked with God, she wouldn't have been there. So that's obviously the fact that he doesn't appreciate now that the mother of his grandchildren is in a lesbian relationship. That's pretty obvious to me. If you kind of pull on the thread a little bit, right? Okay, got it. Okay, so this is the original bitch boy, Mike Johnson, again, being pressed on this issue. I just, it's really easy. So if I was advising anybody that was going to be, if I was the press coordinator for any of these individuals, I would never do this, but if I was the press coordinator for any of these individuals, I would not advise them to say anything other than it's an absolute tragedy what happened, and the federal government in coordination with state and local authorities will investigate, and leave it right there. But instead, when you start saying things like domestic terrorist and all this other shit, or if Kristi Noem, when we sufficiently dunked on her, that it was a snowy day, they were stuck in the snow, adverse weather, obviously that was all fucking dunked on, right? It was all dunked on. If that were the case, if people were paying me, I would say, this is what you're going to say. I would give you the fucking script. And then if they came off the stage afterwards and little Mikey would look up at me from being 4 feet tall, I would bitch slap him to say, that's not what we talked about. Why did you say that bullshit? So case in point, this bullshit.
Officials have repeatedly referred to Renee Good as a domestic terrorist, even as the government is actively investigating her killing. Are you concerned that the administration is using too broad a definition of domestic terrorism here? Doesn't it open the door for this admin or a future one to cast an equally broad net to criminalize or surveil American citizens?
I'm going to be intellectually consistent and say...
I'm sorry, Mike. I'm sorry. Listen, when you left the house this morning after I made your Eggos, I told you to never say things like being intellectually consistent, because that's bad. So you are going to get an extra big spanking.
This is my way. I try to reserve judgment on these things until the investigation is borne out. The difference between this and the Fed chairman investigation is, with this, there's 6 different camera angles on this terrible tragedy.
That's right. We've all seen the same thing
that occurred there in Minneapolis, and we've all seen it. Everybody draws their own conclusions.
Actually, people have drawn the correct conclusion, and what you are doing is gaslighting.
It's interesting that you can get 2 people look at the same video and they draw 2 different conclusions. This is why we have investigations, and I'm confident that will go through. I think the feds, the state should definitely cooperate with the federal investigators.
It's the other way around, my guy. The federal investigators have decided not to work with the state, and we have evidence of that directly because members of the DOJ have quit over this, Mike. So once again, you're going to go to bed without a Swanson TV dinner. Don't know what to tell you. Bad boy.
That's how these things work, and we'll find this out. What I saw, the angle that I saw, was this woman was taunting ICE officers. She was impeding law enforcement.
Taunting is I look through sentencing guidelines, and nowhere did I see taunting as a reason for public execution. Have you? I haven't seen that. Have you guys seen that? I haven't.
She was violating a number of laws in doing so.
What law did she violate? Having her car parked in a strange way? Bullhorns, whistles, honking horns? If that's the case, then why didn't ICE pick up the phone and call local law enforcement? I want to level set and clear something up. ICE is a law enforcement entity. ICE's primary responsibilities, as we know, are immigrations and customs enforcement. They do not have law enforcement authority when it comes to traffic stops. Yes, they can make arrests of American citizens. Yes, they can, specifically. What they cannot do, though, is just indiscriminately use their law enforcement powers to just arrest American citizens. It's got to be connected to immigration enforcement. Are they obstructing an investigation? Those things are, yes, those things are, they are, it's true. Those things are within their scope. What Renee Good did doesn't categorize into any of those buckets. Okay? So again, more lies, more attempting to acknowledge what happened. Jonathan Ross is a schmurderer.
They were very patient and asked her multiple times to remove her vehicle and stop impeding their operation, and she refused. Her partner, whoever that was taunting the officer. It was a crazy set of circumstances, and from the angle I saw, this is my view. I'm not the investigator and I'm not the judge and jury, but I'll tell you what I saw is that the vehicle, she hit the accelerator and hit the ICE officer, and he reacted in a split second. And it will be up to the investigators and everyone else to determine the outcome of that. But I think everybody should reserve judgment on it, and I'm going to.
Isn't that what you just did, bitch boy? If everyone was supposed to reserve judgment on it, then why did you just pass judgment on it? Bitch boy, you've been bad. You've been bad. You know what I'm going to make you do? You know what I'm going to make you do, bitch boy, when you get home? I'm going to park you in front of your little TV in your little room. I'm going to force you to watch. No, I don't want to do that because you get off on that. I'm going to force you to watch. I'll think about it. I'll get back to you with appropriate penalty, bitch boy.
Keep saying the same thing. Yes.
I mean, come on. Come on. See what I mean, right? You see what I mean, MAGA? This is where you guys are stuck now. You find yourself in this position where you won't look at, you will not believe, you contextually when you have a conversation with somebody, especially like a traditional debate tactic would be to appeal to emotion when you're getting smoked. Like when you're getting destroyed in a debate, you appeal to emotion. What I mean by that, if somebody is saying something that if they're stuck, they're going to say, well, you support criminals roaming the streets and child predators and rapists and murderers. And the answer is, of course we don't. Nobody supports these things. And then they'll add things that aren't true. Then they'll say, well, there were 4 protesters surrounding the back of the car, so those agents all felt like they were under threat. None of that happened. None of that happened. This is what they'll do. So this is what Mike is doing now, telling other people not to pass judgment while he's passing judgment. So, yeah. Anyway, just a very interesting pivot, we'll say. I see a couple people have requested.
Yo.
Red G, how are you today?
I'm okay. So I just wanted to say.
What? What did you want to say? You have to. I don't know what happened there, bro. But your sound went out. CG, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
How are you? Good. What's on your mind?
Oh man, I just came in to say we just don't give a fuck anymore, man. That's pretty much it, man. We can't live with Democrats. You know, our two ideologies are too different, man. So we just can't live.
So hey CG, bro. Tell me what ideology from Democrats that you don't agree with.
Well, man, anything you say, I disagree with. I disagree with everything.
So you don't. So basically, you support tyranny.
Well, no, I don't support that, man. But I don't support.
Yeah, you do.
Either.
Yeah.
Well, you just appeal to emotion, right? You just did what you said that we do, right? You just said, oh, you know, you're getting messed up in a debate, so now you're going to appeal to emotion. So I support tyranny because I don't support. Yes, you did.
No, I'm asking you.
Absolutely did.
I'm asking you. Do you support tyranny?
No, I don't.
So was it tyrannical for the government to force you to get a vaccine or wear a mask?
I never got one, and I never wore a mask. So
that's not what I asked you. That's not what I asked. Listen to the question, okay? Was it tyrannical in your mind? Bro, listen to the question. Listen. It's okay. Shh. It's okay. Listen. In your mind, is it tyrannical for the federal government to force you to get a vaccine or wear a mask? Yes or no?
Well, if they would have forced me, then yes.
Okay. Was it tyrannical for ICE thugs? I'm sorry. Was it tyrannical for ICE agents to be walking around American cities with masks over their face?
No.
See? Get the fuck out of here. You see what I mean? Like, think about what he just said, friends. I want you to think about what he literally just said. Can you see what I mean? And CG, and you come up here saying that we can't live around you guys? Or you can't live around us? Bro. So while you're on your way to your mediocre job with your mediocre life, I want you to realize what you just admitted. You freedom-loving, ignorant fucks think that mask mandates and vaccines are government overreach, thus tyranny, but you don't think federal government law enforcement officers roaming the streets of American cities with masks over their face, you don't think that's tyranny. Are you fucking kidding me? And bro, if you might have thought that was a hot take, but my God, my guy, what the absolute F. Holy shit. Real time. Hey, Blue, how are you?
Good morning, Steve. I just kind of wanted to touch on something that you just touched on that I don't think gets pointed out enough.
That was wild, right? That was wild,
that was
right?
Absolutely wild.
Oh my God.
But I wanted to touch on, there's been a lot of focus on the agent who shot Renee Good. And rightfully so. But I don't think there's been enough focus on the other masked man who was rushing her vehicle that pulled on her door handle and then reached into her car, which was the reason that she drove off in the first place.
Correct.
You can tell that she was trying to get away from this masked man while another masked man was patrolling around her vehicle. And she didn't even see the one that was patrolling around her vehicle as she was trying to pull away from the one that was trying to get her out of the vehicle.
That's correct.
So that's just all this.
You could look at some of the video, Blues. I didn't mean to interrupt, but you could look at some of the video and where her hands were his hands on her steering wheel at one point. I mean, again, this is what I'm talking about. Like exactly. the pivot in mental gymnastics that these folks will play. Although there's a lot of room in their brain for gymnastics, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. The lengths to which they'll go to try to defend this is wild.
Absolutely,
it's fucking wild.
Yeah, she was trying to get away from someone who was assaulting her.
Exactly. Like a woman in America under threat every single day. We know that 35 people lost their life in ICE detention in 2025. It's the most in 20 years. We know that there have been assaults, sexual assaults against people in captivity. We know that 18 pregnant women were assaulted. We know that 14 children were assaulted. All these kinds of things. And what was she supposed to do? No one from the right has ever talked about the fact that she might have been in fear for her life. No one's bothered to talk about that at all. But instead, tyranny is wearing a mask, Blue. Tyranny is wearing a mask. 100%. I appreciate you, my friend. Thanks for being here. See you later.
Later.
You guys saw that in real time. This is what we're talking about, right? Tyranny. For years, all we heard from our conservative friends was, government overreach. My Second Amendment rights give me the ability to rise up against a tyrannical government. Apparently, tyranny is subjective because there are millions of people in this country right now that truly believe that a mask mandate and wearing and getting a vaccine is the ultimate example of government tyranny. But the federal government, the largest law enforcement division we have currently is ICE. The federal government sending masked agents across the country into U.S. cities, terrorizing U.S. citizens, capturing, kidnapping, detaining, and arresting U.S. citizens, unaliving U.S. citizens in the streets of an American city. That's not tyranny, though. Okay. Nothing to see here. Jesus. Like, what? What are we talking about?
So banning abortions is tyranny, but not mandating.
Thanks for playing. Fucking wild. Optimistic.
Hey, Steve.
How are you today? How you doing?
I'm gonna have a good day today, man. I feel it. I feel it in the loins. I think so. How about you, Steve? How are you doing?
You're gonna have it. You feel it in your loins that you're gonna have a good day?
Might be a southern saying, but yeah, I feel it in the loins, man. I feel it in the loins. I think today's gonna be a good day. How about you, Steve?
Okay. What's up? What's on your mind?
So Steve, I'm wondering if any of your followers have sent you anything about the Sasha Riley recordings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about it yesterday.
Oh, I missed it. Oh, damn. I'm so sorry. Okay, well, yeah, feel free to drop me down, man. Just want to say I love what you do. I've got so much love for you, man. Thank you so much for literally every single day being this consistent. Thank you.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Yeah, we did. We spent a lot of time on that yesterday. It's just the unraveling of the mediocre white men that support MAGA is wild to see. Hi, Brandy. How are you? Brandy, are you there? Brandy? Okay. Like, it just, I don't know how to describe this the right way, but I just want people to understand something. When we have these conversations and we can expose the ultimate hypocrisy from the weak-ass, mediocre at best, white MAGA men who were so afraid to wear a paper mask and are afraid of books and are afraid of rainbows and Jell-O and umbrellas and music and art and everything else. They're all so afraid of all those things. They're so terrified of books and college campuses. Oh no, and nail polish and Bud Light and brown people and the cotton and nail polish and tampons. Oh my God, they're all so afraid of all those things. But the big meanie government telling people to wear masks or vaccines, that's so scary. But you're fine with armed thugs walking around the streets of U.S. cities with masks over their face. And I'll bet you all the money I have, which ain't much, that so many of those freedom-fighting patriots, so many of those voter ID, so many of those freedom-loving patriots that are now masked up, where I bet you some of the same bitch boys that wouldn't wear a paper mask. Can't wear a mask. Can't breathe right. It's affecting my breathing. Guys are so fucking weak. I'll say it again. I have never met in my life, in my 58 years, I have never met a weaker, a scared, pathetic group of people than conservative white men. They are the biggest crybabies, the biggest fucking whiners, afraid of everything. Afraid of everything. These strong, mods, we should get conservative men to take the BDSM test because they would all be subs. Every single one of them. Every single one of them. Yes. In our little mod community, we all took the BDSM test and it was wild. I must say. It's the reason we all get along so well. But you would all be subs. Every single one of you. You alphas. You big tough guys, you big betas, you big alphas, you're like, I don't even know what you are. You're not even on the Greek alphabet. You're just weak. You complain every single day about tyranny. Every single day, the big bad government, and here we are. There's no bigger, badder government than what we are watching on the streets of American cities, and you're fine with it. Said the man with red nails. My guy, here's the thing. I am super confident in myself, which gives me the ability to express myself because color is joy. Now, if you don't like it, don't wear it. That's more an indication of your beta-ness than it is anything else. What's up? You see, that's the thing. You're proving my point in the midst of this conversation without you even knowing it. Like, what? Anyway, I digress. Okay, let's get back into that story because I want to because the lack of action in Minnesota regarding this investigation has a cause and effect. Okay, here's the cause and effect. 6 federal prosecutors. This is reported by the New York Times. This came out yesterday. 6 prosecutors quit over push to investigate ICE shooting victim's widow. Joseph H. Thompson, a career federal prosecutor who was acting U.S. attorney for Minnesota last year, was among those who resigned as the Justice Department sought to examine woman's supposed ties to activist groups. So we're gonna unpack this because it's something that you're not going to expect, MAGA. You're gonna need to pay attention. All of you in here thinking about what you want your nail polish color to be, sit down for a second. I'll bring you your cookies in a little bit, then I'll stroke your hair. 6 federal prosecutors in Minnesota resigned yesterday over the Justice Department's push to investigate the widow of a woman killed by an ICE agent and the department's reluctance to investigate the shooter, according to people with knowledge of their decision. Joseph H. Thompson, who was second in command at the U.S. Attorney's Office and oversaw a sprawling fraud investigation, MAGA, the person that quit yesterday because your Department of Homeland Security, under the direction of Christy, I'm going to kill a puppy, Gnome, and Baggy Cash, Tom Homan, decided they weren't going to investigate. They weren't going to investigate the person who pulled the trigger. No. Instead, they're going to investigate the wife of Renee Good. So that person, one of the people who quit, was the person that was investigating all this fraud that exists in Minneapolis and in Minnesota. And MAGA, you probably don't know the name Amy Bach, do you? I'm going to tell you who that is in just a moment because that's going to blow your mind because you didn't know about that because no one told you that story. I got you. It'll be cuddle time. I'll read you a story. Joseph Thompson, again, who was second in command at the U.S. Attorney's Office and oversaw a sprawling fraud investigation that has roiled Minnesota's political landscape, was among those who quit on Tuesday. According to 3 people with knowledge of the decision, Mr. Thompson's resignation came after senior Justice Department officials pressed for a criminal investigation into the actions of the widow of Renee Nicole Good. I believe her name is Becca, the Minneapolis woman killed by an ICE agent on Wednesday. Mr. Thompson, 47, a career prosecutor, objected to that approach as well as to the Justice Department's refusal to include officials in investigating whether the shooting itself was lawful, the people familiar with his decision said. So keep that in mind real quick. I'm just gonna play this sound again because this is what, again, my little bitch boy said. Because bitch boy was bad. Where is it? Where's bitch boy? Bitch boy tried to paint the picture that it was the local authorities that did not want the investigation to happen. Nope, it was not. It was the federal government. It was the Department of Justice that excluded local law enforcement from the investigation. That's why these people quit. So again, beta bitch boys that are in the chat, all of you all the same, that you'll follow the sheep. If Donald Trump told you all to wear the same clothes one day, you would. You would. If he told you to dress up in bright colored clothing with rainbow suspenders and flip-flops, you would. I said this yesterday. This is what I'd like you to do, because the president has continued to lie about your $2,000 tariff checks, right? He told you he was going to get a DOGE check. You didn't. He told you he was going to give you your $2,000 check by the end of last year. You didn't. Now he's telling you you're going to get your $2,000 check by the end of this year. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to sell everything you own. I want you to mortgage your house. I want you to cash in your children's college savings accounts. I want you to cash in your 401k. I want you to sell all your stocks. I want you to sell your Pokemon collection, whatever the fuck you got. I want you to go on the Kelce betting site and place all of that money on when you're going to get your rebate check, your tariff check. Okay? Cool. Once again, the Department of Justice excluded local law enforcement from this investigation, and now they want the investigation to go after not the person who pulled the trigger. Nope, not him. Not the one who actually committed the crime, right? But the wife of Renee Good? Why would they need to do that? Mr. Thompson, 47, a career prosecutor, objected to that approach, as well as to the Justice Department's refusal to include state officials in investigating whether the shooting itself was lawful. People familiar with this decision has said. The Minneapolis Police Chief, Brian O'Hara, said in an interview that Mr. Thompson's resignation dealt a major blow to efforts to root out rampant theft from state agencies. The fraud cases, which involve schemes to cheat safety net programs, were the chief reason the Trump administration cited for its immigration crackdown in the state. The vast majority of defendants charged in these cases are American citizens of Somali origin. When you lose the leader responsible for making the fraud cases, it tells you this isn't really about prosecuting fraud. What do you know? Interesting. The other senior career prosecutors who resigned include Harry Jacobs, Melinda Williams, and Thomas Calhoun Lopez. Mr. Jacobs had been Mr. Thompson's deputy overseeing the fraud investigation, which began in 2022 during the Biden administration. Because, MAGA, you guys are so, here's the thing. You guys are so, how do I say this? I won't even add. You think that the Nick Shirley YouTube streams was the first look into investigations into fraud in Minneapolis? This goes back to 2019. There were convictions during the Biden administration. Do you care that you're so gullible, right? Do you care? Do you wake up every morning saying, who's going to lie to me today? Woohoo! Like, what? Do you care? So now you were all excited that we're going to go into this investigation into all this fraud, and because your government, the federal government under Donald Trump, the DOJ under Pam Bondi, DHS under Kristi Noem, et cetera, has excluded local law enforcement, and they're not investigating the actual act that took Renee Good's life. Instead, they're going to investigate the wife of the victim, and because of that, the people who were assigned to investigate fraud have resigned. So what the fuck did you get out of this? What did you get out of this? Yes, I realize it's our government too. I get that. But you voted for it. All right. Mr. Thompson, Mr. Jacobs, Ms. Williams, and Mr. Calhoun Lopez declined to discuss the reasons they resigned. The Justice Department did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Tuesday's resignation followed tumultuous days at the U.S. Attorney's Office in Minnesota as prosecutors there and in Washington struggled to manage the outrage over Ms. Good's killing, which set off angry protests in Minnesota and across the nation. So, like, do you understand what happened now? So who's going to investigate? Right? Who's going to investigate it? These are the people that were assigned to this. These are Trump appointees, people that were loyal to the president's agenda. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure you knew that. And I mentioned Amy Bach. See, MAGA, this is what you guys don't know because you're not bothered. See, this is hearts in the chat for independent journalists, not named Nick Shirley. Okay. Amy Bach, a YT woman, and her name is spelled the same way as my ex-wife, but we won't go there. Amy Bach is a Minnesota nonprofit leader, best known as the founder executive director of Feeding Our Future, the organization at the center of the massive Minnesota child nutrition fraud cases. Did you know that, MAGA? Did you know that it was a YT woman who's been identified and prosecuted as the ringleader of this entire thing? Did any of you know that? Probably not. She pled not guilty and has been charged federally along with many others in connection with allegations that Feeding Our Future and affiliated sites fraudulently claimed reimbursement for meals that were not actually served. Here's the thing. Amy Bach is the founder and former executive director of Feeding Our Future, a now defunct Minnesota. This is from, what's this from here? Where's the source on this? This is from the Department of Justice. Founder and former executive director of Feeding Our Future, a now defunct Minnesota nonprofit that was supposed to, this is from Reuters, I'm sorry, this is from Reuters, that was supposed to distribute meals to low-income children under federal child nutrition programs. Under her leadership, the organization grew from a modest sponsor in 2016 to controlling hundreds of millions of federal dollars by 2021, a growth that later proved to be connected to widespread fraud. Bach and co-defendant Salim Saeed were convicted for their roles in what authorities described as approximately $250 million pandemic-era fraud scheme. Federal prosecutors said the scheme involved falsely claiming to serve tens of millions of meals to children and submitting those claims for reimbursement from the federal government. Investigators found that most of the money was never spent on actual meals. Instead, funds were allegedly funneled through shell sites and parties to collect reimbursements they weren't entitled to. In March of 2025, Bach was found guilty by a federal jury on multiple counts, including conspiracy to commit wire fraud and federal programs bribery, after a trial that focused on how the organization operated and how reimbursement claims were submitted. She was described by prosecutors as the mastermind or ringleader of the fraud network. Dozens of others involved in the wider scheme, about 78 people overall, have also been charged, many pleading guilty in related cases. Did you know that, MAGA? Did you know that it was a YT woman at the top? She was recently ordered from a retribution perspective or from a reimbursement perspective to give back her Porsche. Where's the hold on a second, I've got it here. A federal judge approved a preliminary forfeiture order requiring Bach to give up roughly $5.2 million in assets, including $3.7 million in bank accounts, a 2013 Porsche, and luxury goods, designer items, electronics found at her home. Another judge signed off on a $5.2 million restitution order seeking repayment of the ill-gotten gains to taxpayers. It's the kind of person that Donald Trump normally pardons, right? Could we expect a pardon for her? Interesting. Because she has a co-conspirator, right? Salim Saeed, who is of Somali descent. So is Ms. Bach going to get pardoned and not? Interesting, right? Did you know any of that, MAGA? Did you know any of that? How come Nick Shirley didn't talk about that? How come they didn't put any context on that story? How come you are not willing to accept the fact that the entire thing was based on a lie? The entire increase in ICE agents in the state of Minneapolis, in the state of Minnesota, and on the streets of Minneapolis was based on a fucking lie. ICE agents were there, flexed to 2,000 or 3,000, whatever the number is now, because of a lie. And by the way, if the argument was you want to investigate fraud, why is ICE doing it? ICE doesn't investigate fraud. Are they investigating fraud by, pulling over or, knocking on doors, detaining Uber drivers? Do you ever think things through? I mean, have you ever really thought about no. Dumb question. The Feeding Our Future scandal is widely regarded as the largest C-19 pandemic-era fraud scheme in U.S. history involving federal food programs. Because many implicated affiliates were from Minnesota's Somali American community, the case also sparked intense political and social debates about oversight, discrimination, and community responses. The scandal has had ripple effects on federal funding. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has taken action to suspend hundreds of millions of dollars in federal awards to Minnesota over fraud concerns, citing widespread abuse of program funds connected to the Feeding Our Futures investigation. Not only that, but the federal government now has suspended child care subsidies for blue states, too. Why? Exactly, Grant. Knock, knock. Hello, any fraud in there? Knock, knock. Right? So again, do you understand the impact based on a lie? This is the justification for going after people. We're going to tell we're going to manipulate our base even more. What do you mean? Well, there was this situation going back to C-19. The Biden administration did a really good job, and we can't tell anybody that. Well, they investigated all this fraud, and the ringleader was this white woman. Well, we can't tell them that. Are there any brown people involved? Yeah, there's connected to the Somali community. Okay, cool. So let's just tell them that. Let's just tell our base that the brown-skinned Somalis took, what number can we say to make it impactful? Let's say trillions. Okay, trillions of dollars when it's 250 million. Let's tell them it's trillions of dollars. That'll get their attention. And then that's going to justify us going into flexing on with more ICE agents in the streets because we hate Tim Walz. Everybody good with that? We cool? Okay, sweet. Because that's what happened. That's what happened. I literally heard people the other day in a live saying that it was trillions and trillions of dollars. Does anybody know how much $1 trillion is? The number is 250 million. There's numbers that, it fluctuates around, but again, do you understand why? Yeah, we hear 9 billion. Again, that's my point. Hold on. Goodbye, my love. Be safe, be kind, be gentle. See you later. Good luck today. Oh, that's right. Good luck. Okay. I'll see you later. I love you too. Bye. Girl dad. Anyway, this is what happens when you're lied to. This is what happens. This is literally what happened. It's real time. It happened right in front of you. You were told something. There was a reaction that you felt was justified, and a woman lost her life. But that's no big deal, right? Nothing to see here. Nothing at all. Nothing to see here. Totally made up. Hey, Tom.
Hey, man, quick nerdy science fact. 1 million sheets of paper is a 10-story building stacked on top of each other.
Okay, 1 million sheets of paper is a 10-story building. Okay.
Yes, 1 billion sheets of paper is 5 times higher than Mount Everest.
Okay.
Okay? 1 trillion sheets of paper is halfway to the moon.
Interesting.
117,000 miles of paper.
But that's just, what's $1 trillion between friends, Tom?
What's $1 trillion between buddies? Great job, dude. Let me let you go. I just wanted to be nerdy and give you that fact.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. See you later. Again, this is how gullible you folks are. All somebody has to say is it was $1 trillion. Halfway to the moon. Stacks of paper. Thanks for letting us nerd out, Tom. Appreciate that. Do you all care that you're just... This is one of those stories that, obviously the impact on the Somali community is horrible. We know that. Justification for going after more brown-skinned people. But it's just so easy to disprove, like most things. Right? It's just so easy to disprove. Did any of you chirping in the chat, any of you that want me to pick you, I'm not going to pick any of you because you're all just not smart enough because I prefer brain power. I am a sapiosexual without question. Have you ever thought for a second just to look past one headline? Who was it that started? Oh, it's a white woman? Well, she must have been manipulated by the Somalis. Nope. Well, she must have Somali heritage. Nope. Well, it probably wasn't her, it's AI. Nope. Sorry. She was convicted in federal court in March for her role in a $250 million fraud scheme. Forfeit and pay back millions in assets and restitution. The case remains one of the largest federal fraud scandals in U.S. history. And it's her. She's the ringleader, but nothing to see here. Nothing at all. Nothing to see here. It's wild to me. And we're going to get into this whole thing. We're going to have history class in a little bit. Righteous, how are you today?
Hey, doing very well. I just wanted to make a quick comment or remind us all. How much money was it in food that they incinerated and stopped initially off those trucks?
Oh, that's a good point. I forgot the amount, but yeah, I know what you're talking about, right? Yeah. Similar, yeah. We did the same thing across the world. Yeah, good point. Yeah. It's a good point.
Okay, that was all.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
You
Thanks.
Too.
Let's see. Just real quickly, I wanted to thank, let's see, Tracy and to Jolie and to Angela and to Jennifer. Thank you guys. You're very kind. Appreciate your kind contributions. You guys are helping us be. You're helping us. You are the NGO that is funding me today. I appreciate that. considering MAGA doesn't know what that means. But anyway, also thank you to Alicia. Paid dude. Alicia started the dollar train. If you want to participate, you know how to do that. This goes there. I just did math in my head. What do you know? Anyway, wild story, right? Fucking wild story. So let's get into some of this recent statement by the president. I think should have us, well, not me, but MAGA concerned. I want you to hear this. This was an interesting moment that the president said. And then we're going to get into this wild little interview he had. But this part first, I think, should cautionary tale, as they would say in Mean Girls. But I want to get your response to what you hear here, MAGA, because it's really it's a little concerning. Because if it's America first, then why would the president be talking about something like this? Let me see if I can find the exact statement that he made. Hang on one sec. Is this it? Yeah. Okay. So I want you to listen to this. Listen closely, okay? Because this is not AI. This is not manipulated. This is the president just yesterday talking about the situation in Iran, and we're going to get into that in just a minute.
Iranian patriots keep protesting, take over your institutions if possible, and save the name of the killers and the abusers that are abusing you. You're being very badly abused. If the numbers are right now, I hear 5 different sets of numbers. I hear numbers. Look, 1 death is too much. But I hear much lower numbers, and then I hear much higher numbers. But I say save their names because they'll pay a very big price. Then I've canceled all meetings with the Iranian officials until the senseless killing of protesters stops. And all I say to them is help is on its way. You saw that I put tariffs on anybody doing business with Iran. Just went into effect today. And I say make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over.
What?
And it's all very fragile. What would have happened to us? I'm telling you.
What?
If I didn't win this election, what would have happened to us?
Okay. So, MAGA, this is a thought experiment for you, right? This is going to be hard. But I want to remind you that the president said to all Iranian patriots, keep protesting, take over your institutions. Okay, so on Truth Social last year, actually in March of last year, March 4th, 2025, this is what the president said about protesting. Hang on.
All federal funding will stop for any college, school, or university that allows illegal protests. Agitators will be imprisoned or permanently sent back to the country from which they came. American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. No masks. Thank you for your attention to this matter. President DJT.
So the question I have, MAGA in particular, to you. The president supports protesting in Iran. In Iran. Again, that's spelled I-R-A-N. In Iran, he supports and encourages protesting there, but not here. So protesting ICE agents in the street, not allowed apparently. Protesting on college campuses where American students will be permanently expelled or, depending on the crime, arrested. It's okay to protest in Iran? Can somebody make that make sense, please? Because there's other examples. Let's see. Let's go back. Let's talk about some other examples that the president has said. In June 2020, amid nationwide protests following the murder of George Floyd, Trump delivered remarks emphasizing, quote, law and order and deploying federal forces. He said he would help protect peaceful protesters, but also called out professional anarchists, violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, and Antifa, of course. During the same 2020 protest, Trump tweeted the phrase, when the looting starts, the shooting starts. A controversial line perceived by many as threatening violence against protesters. Twitter flagged it for promoting violence. Don't forget, famous testimony from Mark Esper. that during that same, when the pussy ass bitch Donald Trump was really concerned about the Lafayette Square protests in DC, he asked his defense secretary if he could just shoot the protesters in the legs. But it's fine in Iran to protest, right? Ahead of the nationwide No Kings protest in October of last year, Trump responded to demonstrators who were organizing widespread demonstrations against his administration by saying he was not a king, dismissing the protest characterization and framing himself as working hard for America. He also repeatedly criticized the protesters with campaign social media postings, mock imagery, and downplaying turnout, even suggesting critics were radical left lunatics. In March, Trump made a statement on True Social threatening to expel, arrest, or deport students. I just read that to you. While not direct quotes, several media and advocacy organizations have compiled Trump's past rhetoric linked to U.S. protests, including publicly calling certain protesters groups thugs or blaming inadequate law enforcement for unrest, issuing aggressive rhetoric towards demonstrators, or portraying protests as threats to public safety. Although focused on protests, Trump's latest public comments about Iran's demonstrations reverberate with his broader posture on civic dissent. How the fuck can the President of the United States, again, y'all have been told that Iran's a threat, the takeover of Sharia law and this and that. And I'm going to give you a little bit of Iranian history here in just a moment because it's happening again. But we're encouraging protests in Iran, but you can't do it here? You understand that in our Constitution, citizens have the right to protest. And are the protests in Iran peaceful? No, because people are being executed. But you're suddenly okay. You're okay with that. Make it make sense, because it doesn't. It just doesn't. Yeah, exactly. It's completely, it's wild to me. Good morning, Renee. How are you today? Renee? Are you there? I guess not. I'm the Progressive in Your Pocket. Go pick up the Progressive in Your Pocket t-shirt that's in the merch store. You'll like it. You can walk around with me on your chest all day. Hey now.
Hey now.
Good morning, Mel. How are you today?
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What's on your mind?
I have a bit of a controversial statement to make. I love your show. I listen often, and I appreciate your position on white men needing to stand up. And just now, when you were giving the real person behind the Minneapolis, oh, that's a tough word in the morning. The fraud.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It was a YT woman.
Correct, it was.
And a YT woman has lost her life.
Correct.
And YT women have got to stand against the patriarchy. Listen to us. I'm a black woman. Listen to us. You hold more power than you realize. You have got to stand against the patriarchy. Don't be afraid. You're still going to be white if you abandon the patriarchy. You're still going to be white. You still be YT. Sorry. TikTok friendly. And I just found it very ironic that this has transpired. I am beyond heartbroken that Renee lost her life. It was so brutal. And every time I see a replay of it to prove that she wasn't running him over, I just have to change from it. I just can't take it anymore. The discussion is absurd. It was an evil act, and I'm so sorry. But listen to me. That's what they think of the YT woman. she wasn't staying in her place. Snap out of it, girls. Please. For all of us. Please, snap out of it. That's all I have to say. I love your show. Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
Bye.
She's right. She's right. No notes. No notes. No notes. Again, just to kind of close that particular point, we now have the president cheering on and celebrating protests in Iran. Okay? What's the statement again? Hold on. I'll just read you from True Social. True Social. It's wild. Where is it? Iranian
patriots, keep protesting. Take over your institutions. Save the names of the schmillers and abusers. They'll pay a big price. I've canceled all meetings with Iranian officials until the senseless unaliving of protesters stop. Help is on its way. MIGA. M-I-G-A. President Donald J. Trump.
How does that track with y'all, MAGA? You've been told by the president that Iran's a threat. You've been told that they obliterated their nuclear capabilities. And now, all of a sudden, you want them to protest on the streets of the capital? Do you love Iran now? I'm waiting for one of you in the chat to make that comment that you fully support this. And I'm going to call your bluff. And then I'll remind everybody else that's in here how much of a meh sheep you are. Meh. Meh. And so part of that, right? Part of what's happening over there, I don't know if you know this, but Steve Witkoff is meeting with, let me get the name exactly right. He's meeting with Reza Pahlavi, who is the exiled son of the Iranian Shah. So the Shah was in control of Iran, backed by the West. The West put the Shah in charge. And there was a reign of about 25 or 30 years. And Iran was a bustling society. Iran had more women's rights. It was leaning a little bit more democratic. It was a very progressive society. It was almost like it was a country in the Middle East that did not look like others. Well, fundamentalists in the country did not like that. So they overthrew the Shah. They exiled him out of the country, which led to the rise of Ayatollah Khomeini, capture of American students. So are we going to do this again? Are we going to destabilize Iran and then insert another Western puppet to run the Iranian government? What the fuck do we think is going to happen? Fun fact, when the Shah and his family were exiled, they ended up in Western Massachusetts. And my father, when I was a kid, used to own a beverage store. Not a good thing for an alcoholic, but we used to deliver cases of stuff to parties. We had to stop at a gate and drop shit off, and then people would bring it up, and it happened to be the Shah's house, ironically enough. Weird shit that happened to me in my life. But imagine that. So Steve Witkoff is meeting with, his name is Reza Pahlavi, who is the exiled son of Iran's last Shah and a prominent Iranian opposition figure. Are we going to do this again? Literally, are we going to do this again? So Iran can protest, and good for them for standing up to their oppressive government. Good for them. But the president of the United States is so fucking tone deaf. He comes out and says something like that while American citizens are losing their lives while exercising their constitutionally protected right to protest in the streets of American cities. What the fuck? How is that America first? Anybody want to defend that? Anybody? Anybody care to defend that? And again, I support their opposition to their oppression, but the president saying, totally support you protesters in Iran, but fuck all you protesters here. Airwolf, how you doing, friend? Good to see you.
Good morning, partner. How's everything going?
It's going.
2026, and I'm already screaming at my walls. And what's funny is the walls seem to be talking back. Goodness gracious.
Wild. Holy fuck, it's wild.
But let's start off. I want to get back on the fraud thing here. I'm in a state called Florida. Yes, that Florida. You might find it on a map. It looks kind of familiar, like the male genitalia of the United States. We now have. I don't know if you guys are old enough. I'm 45.
Now.
I'm 45, and we have a guy down here by the name of Scott. I identify him as the walking Skeletor because I am from the 80s, and He-Man was the ultimate cartoon of my generation. I will defend that till I go to the grave. Skeletor was known to have defrauded how many millions or billions from healthcare plans and stuff like that? That was one, right? Just this past week, or this past month, who was that gentleman, Mr. Gentile? Anybody remember Gentile? Okay, that was one, right? How many billions did he get away with? What about this Mr. Grimm guy? He was pardoned. How much millions did he not have to pay back? And I remind you that he absolved him, so he doesn't have to pay any of this money back. Nobody received restitution, nothing. Correct. Here, and now we have a surge in Minnesota to investigate Tim Walz, which I believe is purely political. But meanwhile, we're supposed to turn a blind eye to the literal fraud that was literally proven in court. By court documents, everything, blah, blah, blah. But we're supposed to be like, that's American fraud. That's how would you define it, Steve? Patriotic fraud?
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's America First fraud, Airwolf.
Oh, by the way, your panel is down here. I've been trying to gift you for a while, but your gifting is off, too.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. I can't.
I apologize for that. We're trying to get that. Your shop is amazing.
Thanks. Appreciate that.
Your shop is amazing. I will be contributing to the shop as soon as I get paid my liberal dollars from George Soros on Friday. I will be
it's funny you say that because we all get our Soros checks on time. I mean, I know MAG has been waiting for their Doge check. They were waiting for their tariff check. They didn't get that. They've been promised another tariff check. You might want to join the light because we get our Soros checks on time every month. So I don't know about you guys, but
daggone it. Is it on Fridays or is it on Thursdays? I'm confused.
Sometimes we get it. Yeah, sometimes we get it early.
I'll just have to track that because my liberal brain, I cannot wake up and tell if it's Monday or Friday. That's because
right.
But I want to. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
I've been up there, and you were in the lives that I've been in, trying to defend use of force, and trying to defend, why ICE agents are not receiving proper training to not stand in front of moving vehicles. I don't know where I've been trained, where I would literally put my life on the line in front of I guess it's triggering to my right wingers that a Honda Pilot going 2 miles an hour is enough to make you fear for your life. Look, I understand people have their stances, but right now I don't think that use of force was justified. You had ample enough time to get out of the way of the vehicle. You put yourself in there to begin with, and then you did what you did. As somebody who does use of force on a daily basis, I have to be accountable for everything that is on my person, and that includes the boom boom and the things that go into boom boom. If I'm not, then I'm going to jail. And believe me, use of force is very dear to me. And to me, from every vantage point, use of force was not justified. You had opportunities to de-escalate, and I don't know why people can't see this.
Correct. I mean, what's it called? The use of force continuum?
Yes.
Something like that, where there are various stages, right? And he went from 0 to 100 in a matter of seconds. And there's
correct. And this is just simple logic. And you brought this up. Where every time you go live, you were in that live when I was in there, and I left. You literally said, where in the training manual does ICE get to walk up to a vehicle with a cell phone, approach a vehicle like that? Where is this training at? And what scares me is, I'm sure you've seen this story, ICE even lowered training for people to be on the streets as ICE officers to 47 days.
Correct.
47 days. And what are the ironic things about 47? Oh, goodness gracious. I don't want to take up your life.
I don't think it's a coincidence, Airwolf.
I don't either.
I don't think it's a coincidence. Yeah.
I have to go through use of force training every 6 months. Not just for use of force, I have to be CPR trained because let's remind you, this officer, after he applied use of force, didn't even attempt to walk over there and render aid. That's one of the main cores. When you use supports, you better apply aid. You better make sure you did your job correctly. This guy walked off, went to his car, got on a cell phone, said, "Hey, boys, better call 911," and didn't do anything to help that young lady. That is sickening.
Correct.
And I'm going to let your show go on. I appreciate you, Steve. Keep doing what you got to do, and you'll see me around.
Thank you, bro. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. See you later. Have a good day. Be safe out there. Hearts in the chat for Airwolf. Yeah, we've been in a lot of the same panels together. So we're still getting, I don't know what's going on with wait a minute. What are you doing here? Hold on a second. Florida, I was going to say, Florida's in the house. Florida is in the house. What's on your mind, Francis?
Oh my goodness, it was a mistake, but hi. Do you need to take a break?
Hello. I'm good. Thank you for asking. No, I appreciate you. Francis, by the way, for those of you who do not know, Francis is one of our mods, and Francis is one of the longest serving mods in our little family. And I got a text from Francis this morning, and she called me a sexy bitch. So thank you for that, friend. I appreciate that. And I sent the sexy bitch reply in kind. So there you go. So the best, at least at the end of the day, we can call ourselves sexy bitches.
That's right. And all the sexy bitches in the comments, too. I love you all. I love you most, Steve. Bye.
I love you, too. Talk to you later. Bye. I thought that might have been an accident. But anyway, so I think we've done a sufficient job just calling out the hypocrisy. This latest one to me, though, is just mind-boggling. Of all things, I mean, a lot of it is, this is ironic and this is ironic and how it's justified for use of force for thee, but not for me. And we called out a little bitch-ass, weak-ass beta boy this morning when I asked specifically, do you think mask wearing and vaccines are tyrannical? But yet armed agents, federal agents walking around the streets of America is not. So I want to land the plane here on this particular topic, and we're going to move on to something else in just a second. But Mecca, what I want you to understand is you are cheering on tyranny. I don't think you know that, but I am asking you to consider it. Consider when you say that you don't want federal government overreach. What happened to the days of the conservative Republicans who were all about small government? 10 years ago. The Tea Party, that was one of the big pushes from the Tea Party, is less federal government overreach. Okay? That is a core principle of conservatives. It's a core principle. Small government. Give me a bigger example of government overreach than what we are seeing with ICE. I'll wait. There isn't. Literally, it is the epitome of oppression. It is the epitome of government overreach. It is exactly, Amy, don't tread on me. Exactly. Here it is. Great point. Hearts in the chat for Amy. It's a great point. Here we are. How can you justify your entire belief set is based on conservatism? And to be honest, it's something that you'll get a lot of agreement with from people on the left. We don't want big government either. We just want our government resources to be used for different things. Here we are. You don't want the federal government in your way. States' rights, brother. What? What? Did my mic cut out? I don't think so. Good? No, it's good. So explain it. You can't. Okay, I just want to real quick, go through the Iranian Revolution thing, because I think it's important. It's history, and then we're going to get into the French Revolution history lesson today. If you like what you see here, please consider supporting the channel. We are crowdfunded. You can find us at the various things. They're all at Factsstillmatter, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi became Shah, king of Iran in 1941, and ruled until 1979. His government was backed politically and militarily by Western powers, is specifically the United States and the UK. He pursued what he called White Revolution, a top-down modernization effort involving land reform, industrialization, and expanded rights for women. But many Iranians saw these changes as forced westernization, and they resented autocracy, corruption, economic inequality, and political repression, especially by the Shah's feared secret police, known as SAVAK. Beginning in the late 70s, mass protests, strikes, and civil resistance spread throughout Iran. Workers, students, religious groups, bazaars, traditional merchants, and intellectuals increasingly opposed the Shah's rule. A key moment was Black Friday in September of 1978, when security forces fired on demonstrators, which fueled even broader opposition and organized strikes that paralyzed the country's economy. Ruhollah Ayatollah Khomeini was a Shia cleric who'd been in exile for his criticism of the Shah. His message of opposing tyranny and Western domination resonated with many Iranians. In January of 79, as protests intensified, the Shah left Iran, January the 16th, and then never returned. This departure effectively marked the collapse of his monarchy. Khomeini returned from exile February 1st, 1979, and within days, his supporters took control of the government. On February the 11th, 1979, revolutionary forces declared victory, and the Shah's regime was replaced by a new government based around Islamic law. It's important to be the context now because Steve Witkoff is meeting with the Shah's son. Are we going to do this again? The Shah's son grew up in the U.S., right? I mean, it's like, are we going to do this again? Are we going to regime change and insert not only someone who would be in opposition to the current government, but literally somebody whose family was exiled from the country 40 years ago? Are we going to do this again? What the fuck? Is that America First, MAGA? Really? Somebody want to defend this? You can't, because you won't. Plain and fucking simple. Okay? All right. This was a story that I meant to get to before we get into other stuff, and I don't know. This has to do with Venezuela and Ukraine of all things, and I meant to get to this story a couple days ago, but it just slipped my mind because we were busy. But Fiona Hill, who was a prominent voice who served the administration, who's a prominent voice in Russia-Ukraine relations, has testified. Russian officials indicated back in 2019 that the Kremlin would be willing to back off from its support for Maduro in Venezuela in exchange for a free hand in Ukraine, according to Fiona Hill, an advisor to President Trump at the time. The Russians, Russia, shocker. The Russians repeatedly floated the idea of a very strange swap agreement between Venezuela and Ukraine. Hill said during a congressional hearing in 2019. Her comments surfaced again this week and were shared on social media after the U.S. stealth capture of Maduro. Hill said Russia pushed the idea through articles in Russian media that referenced the Monroe Doctrine, a 19th century principle in which U.S. opposed European meddling in Western hemispheres and in return agreed to stay out of European affairs. It was invoked by Trump to justify the U.S. intervention in Venezuela. Even though Russian officials never made a formal offer, Moscow's then ambassador to the U.S., Anatoly Antonov, hinted many times to her that Russia was willing to allow the United States to act as it wished in Venezuela if the U.S. did the same for Russia in Europe. Hill told the Associated Press this week. Quote, before there was a hint, hint, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, how about doing a deal? But nobody in the U.S. was interested, Hill said. Trump dispatched Hill, then his senior advisor on Russia and Europe, to Moscow in April 2019 to deliver that message. She said she told Russian officials Ukraine and Venezuela are not related to each other. At the time, she said, the White House was aligned with allies in recognizing Venezuelan opposition leader Juan Guaido as the country's interim president. But fast forward 7 years and the situation is different. After ousting Maduro, the U.S. has said it will now run Venezuelan policy. Trump also has renewed his threat to take over Greenland, a self-governing territory of Denmark and part of the NATO military alliance, and threatened to take military action against Colombia for facilitating the global trade. The Kremlin, quote, will be thrilled with the idea that large countries such as Russia, the United States, and China get spheres of influence because it proves might makes right. Like what? Russia gets oil from Venezuela. China gets oil from Venezuela. Follow the money, right? Change in foreign policy on our support of the Ukraine, expectation that Europe's going to pick up the slack. Okay. Nothing to see here. Nothing at all. All right. I want to address some statements recently from, this wild fucking interview that the president did with CBS News. Let me play this for you, and then because we're going to talk about some of the other details connected to it, because once again, he knows he can lie to his base. He knows he can. He knows he can lie because you guys will not push back. All right, and I'll give you some prime examples. He was at Ford. You guys saw him flipping off a Ford employee. Yeah, we saw that, right? Okay, here we go.
The inflation numbers of inflation is very low.
It seems bad.
Wait a minute, but you can't lose sight of the fact that we need peace all over the world. I've ended 8 wars.
The inflation numbers came out. Overall, not bad, but grocery prices.
No, overall very good. Good for us. Good for our country. Joe Biden had the highest inflation numbers in history. I've only been here for 11 months, okay? And, you know, the first few months were really rough.
Jerome Powell's situation, he's the Fed chair. Even some prominent conservatives say it looks like political retribution.
And some prominent conservatives also love it. So, you know, you got to mention them.
On this direct question about political retribution, what it looks like, sir, what's your response?
I can't help what it looks like. Tony, we have now the hottest country in the world. If she got in, you probably wouldn't have a job right now. Your boss, who's an amazing guy, might be bust, okay?
Might be
That's
what?
how big. Might be bust. You wouldn't have this job. You wouldn't have this job. To me, it's vibrant. Listen to the sound. I love the sound of an assembly line.
The CEO of Ford said not long ago he's got 5,000 open.
Listen to this part. The CEO of Ford has 5,000 open mechanic positions that he can't hire to, right? Listen to the president's answer.
Mechanic jobs. He can't find people willing and able to.
That's a good thing, Tony. That means it's vibrant.
The death of Renee Nicole Good.
I would bet you that she, under normal circumstances, was a very solid, wonderful person, but her actions were pretty tough.
What's the end game?
The end game is to win. I like winning.
How do you define that in Iran?
Well, let's define it in Venezuela. Let's define it in Iran, where it wiped out their Iran nuclear threat to complete obliteration. Then some questioned it, and they said, you know, Trump was right. So we've been right about everything. We'll see how that works out for them. It's not going to work out good. Morality. I'm a moral person. It's limited by my morality, and I have a very high grade of morality, so therefore it's limited.
For the record, I do think I'd have this job, even if the other guys won.
Yeah, but at a lesser salary.
Okay. So I'm going to try to make this as simple for you as possible, MAGA, right? I'm going to try to make this as simple for you as possible. It's really hard. I don't know if I can simplify it anymore. But Donald Trump is the president, okay? Start there. Donald Trump is the president of the United States, which means information that comes out from the government is under the Trump administration. Joe Biden is no longer the president. What about Biden? He's no longer the president. You've been in office for a year, okay? He is the president, MAGA, right? Can we agree, right? Everybody, Bueller, Mark, Chad, Bingo, Bongo, Boingo, you all agree? You all have your hands up? Okay. Yes, we all agree that Donald Trump is the president, which means Department of Labor information would be under the Trump administration. Can we all agree with that? So in this speech that you just heard, he just told you that prices are low, that the prices are down. He just told you that. You heard it, okay? So the question is, are you going to believe that, the words from his mouth, or are you going to believe the data from his Department of Labor? Because if you want to believe his words, then you can just leave. If you want to believe his data from his Department of Labor, then we have a problem. Because according to the Department of Labor statistics, inflation sits at 2.7%, which means it's higher than last year. It's 2.7% higher than last year. Just about every major category is up. One thing that I think is really interesting is that food is up from November. Why would food be up? So it's up 0.7%. Overall, it's up 3.1%. Again, MAGA, I'm not lying to you, my guys. I'm not, right? This is from the BLS. BLS is not bologna lettuce sandwich, MAGA. It's Bureau of Labor, although that sounds good. Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS. Immigration's why. Okay, got it. BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics. BLS. This is labor data from Donald Trump's Department of Labor. This is the information that they published yesterday. Okay? Cool. So food is up 3.1%, up 0.7% from November. That's weird. Food at home up 2.4%. Food away from home up 4.1%. Now gas is down 3.4%. That is true. But natural gas to heat your homes is up 10.8%. Apparel's up. Used cars and trucks are up. The only measurable statistic that is down is energy, but gas specifically is down 3.4%, but up 10.8% when you factor in natural gas. So what would you like that to be, MAGA? Would you like it to be what the president told you or what the data tells you? Because they are in, I don't want to say contradiction, that's a big word, not samesies, as I used to say to my children when they were little, not samesies. You cannot say that, I know gas prices are about to go up again. You can't say that inflation is down. You can't say prices are down because they're not, okay? They're just not samesies. 2.7%. And MAGA, this is a question. I've asked this question before and it blows my mind. I've said this before. So MAGA, if the inflation rate in November was 3% and the inflation rate is 2.7% now, does that mean that prices go down? Many of you have said yes. Education is important. I'll just leave that right there. Hey man, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I've seen you like all over the world. How are you? How are you today? Everything good in your world?
I'm good. I'm back in Colombia, enjoying life, But thanks for letting me up. I hope everything's going well with you. I just want to say something. Tell you something that happened to me going across customs as I was going home for Christmas. I had overstayed my visa by exactly a week. And I knew that I would have to pay a fine leaving the country. And my flight was at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm at customs at like 5:30. And when you're at customs, the minute you get past that, you're like right there at the gate. So of course I get stopped and the custom agent's like, go have a seat. So I'm thinking I'm going to miss my flight. God was on my side because another custom agent came to me and asked me to follow her. And I'm like, oh, fuck, what's about to happen? So as we're walking, I realized that she could speak English. And these people love speaking English when they get the chance. So I told her, I go, you know what's so wild about the United States? Because we had a couple minutes to talk. I'm like, there's a high probability that I would have been taken by masked men up out the airport into someone's sea camp or to an undisclosed location. And she's like, what? I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm like, that's how much the country hate immigrants. That's how much the USA, that's how racist the United States is. There is a high probability me being in the United States one day past my visa will have me getting rounded up by masked men. That's wild. And so she couldn't wrap her head around it. And she's like, it's weird because my family, because she's not very political, she's like, my mom and dad owns a home in Miami. I'm like, I'm from Miami. And she's like, they put it up for sale because they fear going back and forth now. And I'm like, yeah, that's where we are. That's where we are. I mean, I sold my place and left the country, so I can understand completely why they would do the same thing.
You've been lots of places in the world, and I'm sure that people think when you describe situations like you just described to people, they must look at you like, "Are you fucking kidding me?" And you're like, "Nope."
Oh, I mean, right? it's the Uber drivers. It's the Uber drivers. They love conversations about the United States because, these people grew up thinking, oh, moving to Miami or South Florida is ideal. But what they're seeing on the news, and I don't think MAGA understands fully that everyone has a cell phone these days. Everyone has internet. Even when I was in Guatemala in the Mayan indigenous villages, they had cell phones. Okay, so they see what's happening in real time in the United States. And they're shocked. I mean, how do you answer the question? How did your country get here? When you went, think about it. Guatemala had a sea war. Escobar just lost control of Medellin, Colombia, less than 20 years ago. How do you explain to these people that we've fallen into the same trap of electing criminals, having corruption running like rampant? We have PDOs, and Medellin cracks down hard on that. It's citizen justice. It's not even about the cops here on that shit, you know. How is it that we have fallen so far as a nation that we have a big population, a part of the United States that's actually justifying every single day? Facts, they're up at 3 o'clock in the morning justifying why those files haven't been released.
I know.
It's crazy. And then the one last comment. The worst for me are the red pill incels, though. They were the catalyst for me leaving, man. Because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, they're only 20, so they got another 60 years on this earth, and we are in trouble.
I hear you, brother. That's a big push for all of us to remind parents of, especially of those young men that are of red pill age, to get out ahead of this shit in middle school, to have those conversations.
It's crazy.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for letting me up,
friend. Always good to see you again. Take care. Be safe. I love Cemento. He travels the world, and he's a big music guy, and we've shared music back and forth. Good dude. He's right though, right? The people looking at our country, like I've seen videos of man in the street interviews of people in the UK, and someone's asked a question like, how much do you think it would like an ambulance ride cost in the US? And they're like, oh, I don't know, maybe $100 and people are like, no, like $3,000. People are like, what? Yeah, that's how bad it is. Okay, a few more things here that I wanted to get to before we go any further. This is again the president speaking with Pete Kegsbreath and Marco Rubio about the new battleships, our new battleships, the Trump fleet. Okay.
Anyway, I think I'd just like to point out that these ships are made of steel as opposed to aluminum. It's a big difference, as you know. Battleships, the great battleships, had 6 and 7 inch steel hulls, and these are going to be likewise made out of very powerful steel. Our steel industry is coming back very strongly, by the way. It's coming back at record numbers.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Hold on. Oh my God. Can we laugh a little bit? Like, this is the president of the United States. He just wants to let people know, in case they were thinking, that our battleships have been previously made of aluminum.
By the way, I think I'd just like to point out that these ships are made of steel as opposed to aluminum. It's a big difference, as you know. Battleships, the great battleships, had 6 and 7 inch steel hulls, and these are going to be likewise made out of very powerful steel. Our steel industry is coming back very strongly, by the way. It's coming back at record numbers.
Donald, are you jealous of 6 or 7 inches?
Hey now.
I mean, I'm not gonna. I'm not gonna ask our friends on the right. Hold on. Yes. Wait. Do I still have that? Hold on. Shit. Yeah.
Samsung.
Exactly. I'm not gonna ask our friends on the right to try to defend it, but I just want you to know that he be a professional. He's now stating that he thinks that you think that previous battleships were made out of aluminum. Okay?
By the way, I think I'd just like to point out that these ships are made of steel as opposed to aluminum. It's a big difference, as you know. Battleships, the great battleships, had 6 and 7 inch steel hulls,
Samsung.
and these are going to be likewise made out of
Samsung.
very powerful steel. Our steel industry is coming back very strongly, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming back at record numbers.
Okay, nothing to see there. Anyway, Yeah, exactly. Who said that? Who said that? Exactly. Where is it? Somebody just said that. Kathleen Kennedy. Kathleen, hearts in the chat. Kathleen says, you mean old Ironside was aluminum? Aluminum. And you can find the clip. I'll put it in the Discord. Marco Rubio and Hegseth, they're standing behind him, and the look on their faces like, holy fuck. Did he just say that? Exactly, Greg. You can tell when you first learn something. It's true. Like, other countries around the world are like, Jesus, aluminum? Wow. We could just use a BB gun and take out a battleship? Fucking sweet. Okay. Anywho. Just more America First stuff for you guys to do on MAGA. And then we're going to get into the history of the French Revolution. Because if you want to be the resistance, then we got to make shit happen. But we have to address what we have in front of us because of what we are. I spend a lot of time calling a hypocrisy because to me it just tracks with everything that MAGA was told to believe. So you're told one thing, but something entirely different happens. So the America First side, case in point. The United States U.S. cash offered to Greenland's $100,000 payout talks revealed. I don't know if you've heard this yet, friends, but U.S. officials have discussed the idea of offering lump sum payments to Greenlanders to encourage secession from Denmark and possibly join the United States. While the precise amounts and logistics remain unclear, White House aides and other officials reportedly considered payments of up to $100,000 per person, according to a report by Reuters citing two sources who spoke on the condition of anonymity. There are 57,000 people who live in Greenland. 100,000 times 57,000, I believe, is $5.7 billion. But $36 annually from taxpayers to support SNAP is too much money. Extending ACA subsidies is too much money. Raising the federal minimum wage is too much money. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. $100,000 per person, according to a rep by Reuters, citing two sources who spoke on conditions of anonymity. The tactic is one of several options reportedly under consideration by the White House for acquiring Greenland, including the potential involvement of the U.S. military. But no boots on the ground, right? However, it risks appearing transactional or even disrespectful to a population that has long debated its independence while remaining economically tied to Denmark. Quote, enough is enough. No more fantasies about annexation, Greenland's Prime Minister Jens Fredrik Nielsen wrote on Facebook on Sunday, responding to the president's repeated statements that the U.S. should acquire the island. Is there anyone capable that a MAGA voter capable of speaking out against this shit? Where's like Clint and all the fucking red hats that are just double down on whatever he says and will put themselves into a fucking pretzel literally in the middle of their own statements defending the shit that he does? Is that America First? There are families in our country who are fucking starving. There is food insecurity across our nation. There are people that are living less than paycheck to paycheck. But taxpayer dollars to the tune of $2,000 annually from every taxpayer that goes to fund the United States military. Roughly $1,000 of U.S. taxpayers goes to fund ICE. $36 a day, $36 annually, not a day, $36 annually from taxpayers to fund SNAP. But that's too expensive. But it's fine that we're doing $2,000 annually to support our Department of Defense, $1,000 roughly annually to support the ICE. But we can give $5.7 billion to Greenland residents. We can't get a Doge check. We can't get tariff checks. We get promised those. We can't get any of that. None of that, right? None of that. But we can spend $5.7 billion to bribe Greenlanders? Anybody care to defend it? Is this 4D chess? I read that story. I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Leaders in Copenhagen and across Europe have expressed strong disapproval of recent comments by the president and other White House officials asserting U.S. claims to Greenland, especially given that Denmark and the U.S. are NATO allies bound by a mutual defense agreement. On Tuesday, France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Britain, and Denmark issued a joint statement emphasizing that only Greenland and Denmark have the authority to determine their own affairs. Again, what MAGA does not know, what many people don't know, is we have pretty comprehensive treaties with Denmark and Greenland that allows the United States to have pretty much as much military presence as we want. There's bases all over the place. Excuse me. There's bases all over the place there. We could send troops there right now. Right now. We could send troops there right now. But instead, we're just going to bribe Native people. President Trump has repeatedly argued that the United States needs to acquire Greenland for strategic reasons, including its rich deposits of minerals, valuable for advanced military and industrial uses, and to ensure U.S. influence across the Western Hemisphere. Monroe Doctrine shit. Like, really? Is this what we're doing? Is that America first? Doesn't sound like it to me, but that's just me. Doesn't sound like it to me at all. But again, that's just me. I'm just some lib. Fine. Play that game all you want. It's totally fine. Nothing to see here. Like what? Make it make sense, please. Somebody, make it make sense. Can you make it make sense? Please? No, Drew? Can you make it make sense?
I can't make that make sense, buddy. I can't. Nobody in their right mind can make that make sense. But I wanted to go back one topic real quick. That's why I clicked to come up.
So it's MGGA. Make Greenland great again.
I can guarantee you that 99% of maggots could not find Greenland on a map.
Well, let's be real. MAGA can't find much.
Hey now. This is true. There's one spot in particular, right, ladies? Anyways, I just wanted to go back one topic really quick and just point out, which I'm not sure if you've mentioned, but I'm sure you're very much aware of, that battleships have not been used since like World War II. Why are we going
combat? Yeah, in combat, maybe some in Vietnam, perhaps. I mean, I don't know enough about my military history specifically, but you're right. Why the fuck are we going backwards?
And many of those battleships were reused from World War II, and we just kept using them and using them and using them until they're just so expensive to maintain. It's going to cost anywhere between like $4 billion to $15 billion to build each one. They're going to be tons and tons and tons and tons of steel. They probably will never actually sail anything. And they're strategically, I mean, we have long-range missiles now. We've got aircraft carriers. We've got submarine. Yeah, you can have some guy in his civvy sitting in his living room piloting a drone. You don't need to have. We don't have to be bombarding from offshore like we did. Storming the beaches of Normandy. So,
well, Drew, you and I know why they're doing it, because of tiny little wrenches. That's why they're doing it.
Yeah, a little slight overcompensation for things, huh?
Yep.
That's all I wanted to say.
If MAGA really wanted to keep the Epstein files hidden, all they would have to do would be to put them in women's private parts.
Hey now, never find them there.
Never find them there. That's for sure.
That's all I got, buddy. Keep up the great work, man.
I appreciate you. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
Thank you.
I mean, come on, though. I mean, why the fuck are we talking about building fucking battleships? He's right. It's nothing other than this little rattle. We're going to rattle the saber. We're going to tell people, yeah, Obi's still around. He's just busy with stuff. He's got the flu right now. So hearts in the chat for Obi. He's still out there. He's really fucking sick. So anyway, True's right. Why the fuck are we going backwards? Somebody want to explain that? Like, why are we going backwards? Building battleships out of steel. We're not going to make them out of aluminum anymore. In case anybody knows, we're not going to make them out of aluminum. I promise you, we're not going to make them out of aluminum anymore. It's good to know. Battleships are not going to be made out of aluminum. They're going to be made out of steel, in case anybody didn't know that. But anyway. I know, thank God, right? Anich, how are you today?
Good, Steve.
Ooh, lost you.
Ouch.
There you go. You're back.
Hey,
Yes.
I actually had some notes to keep myself organized. As usual, thank you so much for creating this space for all of us. We really appreciate your dedication, your time, all of that.
Thank you.
Yesterday was a really, really hard day for me personally. Just with everything, it just came to a head. Particularly watching that man, I believe his name was Orban Enriquez, who was assumed DEAD at the gas station in Minnesota.
Right. Mm-hmm.
There are reports, I've seen, conflicting reports that his girlfriend reported him as being alive and just detained. Then there's reports that his family, no, he's not. They don't have any information. Watching that, it just hit hard for me. We're supposed to just let that go, with no follow-up. What about the woman that was handcuffed and brought into the porta potty? DHS says it's a man, and we're supposed to move on. Hearing you talk about, is it Comer this morning?
Mm-hmm.
And the press, I wonder why we don't see more press pushing back. We see it a little bit here and there, and I'm happy to see it, and I know they're not going to get into a juvenile, tit for tat, but they ask a question, we're given this bullshit answer, and then it's just left there and taken as truth, and we don't, I'm just...
State-run media.
Yeah,
Yep.
It's just, and if it were me, like, I couldn't do that, right? But I'm not a journalist. That's not my, I'm not equipped for that kind of stuff. But it's just really disappointing. Even
it is.
Melanie, I'm not going to say her name correctly. I'm so bad with names. Melanie Stansbury from New Mexico.
Stansbury. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think she's a badass. I think she's a warrior. She got up on the floor last week, I think it was, to say, what bullshit it was that the first day back in the House, the Republicans put the bill forward for the shower heads.
Yeah.
Yes, on the surface, that is just dumb, right, and ridiculous. But why aren't we also calling it for what it is? It's not about shower head and water pressure. It's Trump chipping away at climate policy without actually saying climate.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so tired of I feel like sometimes these assholes are literally handed a platform to say, here, go ahead and tell it. I'm sorry, I know that I'm tripping over my words here, but like, why
no,
are
you're great.
Pushing back?
Well, we are pushing back, but to your point about legacy media, because it's the same system. I mean, don't forget, legacy media needs viewership, thus advertising dollars. So if you challenge the president under this administration, this is why I always try to defend the press and remind people that we really have to protect the press. They're now under pressure because they don't want to lose. They don't want to lose access. That's what it's about. They don't want to be told. They don't want to have their license suspended for no reason. This is what state-run media does. This is why we've got examples throughout history of fascism and autocrats. The first thing they go after is the press. It's historic. We've seen it forever. Lugenpresse, the Russian state media, same thing in all these other autocratic countries across the world. This is what happens. Everything is fake news unless we tell you it's not. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Well, thank you for doing your part in pushing back and sharing. Yesterday with the Sasha Riley stuff, I had to dip out. I couldn't I
Yeah.
couldn't hear that. I couldn't even get past the publisher's note when I found
I
it on
get it.
Substack. But
I
I
get it.
really do appreciate you advocating and you know, just supporting those types of people and what's going on here.
Thanks for saying that. I appreciate you. Have a good day. Be safe out there.
You too.
Um,
Bye bye.
Yeah, I mean, it's the argument that we have here all the time about how yes, gifting is suspended. We don't know what's going on. I am really concerned about the future of a free press. Now, would I like to see it different? I would. I've never been a fan of legacy media, even though I worked in legacy media. I've always been, you'd be surprised by this, I was a bit of a counterculture advocate back in those days, suppressing the power of independent journalists, right? I really worry about people's trust in general going forward of the media. Now, there are amazing independent journalists out there. There's a ton of them, and I follow a lot of them. There's some really, really great journalists. It's not the institution of journalism that I'm concerned about. It's the institution of their corporate overlords. Because if we fall into this trap where all of our media, and by the way, the left loves to talk about this, our media in America, mainstream media, has always been conservative. It's always been right-leaning. It's not even close. If anybody ever wants to study it, you can study this. It's always been conservative. Once again, it's a projection, right? They think it's a far left media just because you might have a liberal, a talking head like Rachel Maddow, for example, a credible journalist. You can fact check her. You may not like her, but she's not some radical leftist. I mean, NBC and CBS and ABC, they're all conservative news outlets. When I say conservative, that just means that they're in the middle, right? They're moderate. They're like right in the middle. Editorial stuff is typically you're going to get more bias, but that's editorial, right? That's what a person's opinion. That's what an editorial is, or an opinion piece. And MAGA, just so you know, I want to let you know that when you look at the top of an article and it says opinion, that's an opinion. Right? You know, like when your parents told you when you were little, opinions are like assholes and elbows. Everybody has them. So when you cite an opinion piece and then you get up in your feels when we say, that's opinion, you use opinion as fact. Now, a person can write an opinion article and cite sources, which would then be them citing sources. Anyway, I won't get on this particular road, but I'm concerned about the future of media. I really, really am, which is why I would say support independent journalists, people that are willing to do the work, people that are willing to look past the bullshit. We don't have anybody to answer. The only people I have to answer to are you guys and my mods, because they'll kick me in the shins. Those are the people that I have to answer to, right? We're not subjected to this oversight. We're not subjected to the rules of engagement. Every single day, I'll do it right now. Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, Kristi Noem, Tom Holman, Stephen Miller. I'm Steve, Facts, Monday through Friday, live right here on YouTube and Twitch, 8 a.m. till noon Eastern time. Fuck you. Have a good day. So we have to be sure that we're mindful of making sure that we always, always, always advocate for freedom of the press. It's incredibly important. So much, it's so important. It's exactly why you see the president going after journalists. That's why. All right, so here's, I just want to go back to this whole, as we discussed earlier, the president talking about economic numbers, and listen to this gobbledygook.
Be laying out even more plans to help bring back affordability. And again, remember, that's a fake word by Democrats.
So we're going to bring back affordability, but remember, it's a fake word.
Prices were too high. They caused the high price. They never want to talk about affordability. They always go, this is an election about affordability. They say they caused it. But they're good at that stuff. They're good at that stuff. They're fake, and they're good at that stuff. It's an election about high prices that was caused by the Democrats and that I brought down a lot.
Like, what? I don't even know what that fucking was. Okay, now we're going to shift gears a little bit, and we're going to talk about the situation with the Fed. And I have a theory on this. So in case you don't know, Donald Trump has asked the Department of Justice to open an investigation into the Fed, in particular, Jerome Powell. So there's been some reactions, including from some prominent Republicans who are going to be dealing with this. Let's listen to Tom Tillis first. So Tom Tillis is retiring. He's a senator from North Carolina. he has been very, very public in his opposition to current things from the Trump administration. This is what he had to say when asked about the investigation going into Jerome Powell.
What's your message to the administration?
My message isn't to the administration. My message to whoever who went after what I consider to be vindictive prosecution to grow up and give the president better advice.
Oh,
He said it was advice.
interesting. Yeah, give the president better advice. And then we also have John Thune, who is the Senate Majority Leader. The Senate Banking Commission would be the one involved to approve any new nominees. So what Tom Tillis and others on the Banking Commission have come out and said, listen, you continue down this road, if you don't have fucking proof of some crimes, then we're not gonna support any of your nominees for the Fed. It is a Senate confirmed position to put new governors on the Fed and to support and to nominate and approve and confirm a new Fed chair. Jerome Powell, by the way, put in that position by Donald Trump. Okay, so this is John Thune on the same thing, and these are very damning statements from John Thune. He doesn't say much controversial against the president, but this is interesting.
This department is not being weaponized now that Jay Powell joins the list of Trump critics who are facing a criminal investigation.
I haven't seen charges filed or brought yet. There are allegations out there to which he is responding, but I've said this before, and I think, you know, if the Justice Department is pursuing something, I hope they have a smoking gun or something, because I don't think you trifle with the Federal Reserve, with the central bank. It is critical to the financial markets in this country. It's critical to our economy, and so, you know, whatever is happening there, and I don't know what it is, and I think it's hard to comment until we do know what it is. But as I said before, it better be real and it better be serious.
It better be real and it better be serious. It's interesting. That's interesting. We don't want these bullshit prosecutions, right? Not only has that been the track record of the Trump administration, they can't get indictments, they can't secure indictments because they're incompetent. This is John Thune, Senate Majority Leader. He's going to have influence over this next round of nominees, right? It better be, the quote, it better be real and it better be serious. A couple of quick thank yous to everyone. Erica, thank you so much for your 5 on the V. Thank you to Ellie. Ellie sends a heart. Thank you, Jennifer. Appreciate you. Angela, Jolie, Tracy. I think I got everybody there. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. Also, Patricia, Char. Thank you so much. You guys are very, very kind. Appreciate you all for being here today. If you want to continue helping support the channel, you can do so. The various things out there. The gifting does look like it's suspended again. I don't fucking know. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Want to thank Rhonda and to Kelly, dedicated to Max from earlier. Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate you saying that. Rhonda says, you're amazing. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. Christina, because TikTok sucks and you can't gift. I appreciate you, Christina. It's very, very kind of you. Actually, let me adjust this one more time. 19. Yes. All right. So I have a theory. Now, this may be completely way off base, but it reminds me of this infamous sort of, I'm not going to call it a press conference, but do you remember when Trump went and visited the Fed back over the summer? Let me see if I can find the clip. I have it here someplace. He went to the, he went to the construction site. It's a very awkward moment. Here you go. He pulls out his little piece of paper. This is how that conversation went.
1 billion. It went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1,
3.2. This came from us?
Yes. I don't know who does that.
You're including the Martin renovation. You just added
our entire capital.
Yeah, you just added in a third building is what that is. That's a third building.
Well, no, but it's a building that's being built.
No, it was built 5 years ago.
So Jerome Powell dunked on him. He pulls out his little piece of paper and says, oh, it's 3.1 billion. Jerome Powell's like, no, you're including the entire cost of the project. And this one in particular that you've referenced on here was completed 5 years ago. So here's my theory. because this project is pretty expansive and it includes removing some faulty piping, and there's some asbestos, and they are going to really turn this into a big project. They're referring to it as the Versailles project. The Fed renovation project refers to major costly overhaul of the Federal Reserve's historic Mariner S. Eccles headquarters in D.C., which has drawn political criticism, particularly from the White House, for its soaring costs from $1.9 to over $3 billion. Again, that includes the entire project going back 5 years. And its perceived lavishness, leading officials to compare it to the Palace of Versailles. Despite Fed explanations citing necessary structural repairs, asbestos removal, modernization, and safety upgrades for buildings untouched since the 1930s, Fed Chair Jerome Powell defends the expense as essential stewardship, while critics like the OMB Director Russ Vought, shocker, and Senate Banking Chair Tim Scott, shocker, questions its scale, prompting an Inspector General review. Here are the key aspects. Modernizing the 1930s building, comprehensive overhaul needed after nearly a century, including asbestos removal, lead remediation, new HVAC, new electrical, new plumbing, and accessibility upgrades, increased from an initial $1.9 billion to just under $3 billion, attributed to inflation, shocker, material costs as related to tariffs, soil contamination, and complexities of historic renovations. The accusation of fiscal mismanagement and luxury upgrades like rooftop gardens, special elevators, new marble, prompted comparisons to the Versailles Palace by administration officials. Here's my theory. Because this project, it comes in around $2 billion, it will be lavish. It's going to be nicer than the ballroom, and it's going to be nicer than Mar-a-Lago. And I think the president is fucking jealous. I think he has no control over the construction. He can't put his name on it. He wasn't involved in shopping for the marble. He wasn't asked to consult on the gold inlay. I think the petty ass little fucking bitch is jealous. I think that's what the entire thing is about. I could be wildly wrong, but there's no justification for trying to charge the Fed. Like what? For what? What are you going to charge him for? This is public record. This information is all public. I don't know, but it seems to track for me at least. I think it's just petty. Last little thing that I want to get to before we get into the little sound I'm going to play for you about the French Revolution, because I think it tracks. There's potential for more war crimes committed by the federal government in connection to the boat strikes in the Caribbean. Have you heard this story? The U.S. attacked a boat with aircraft that looked like a civilian plane. The Pentagon used a secret aircraft painted to look like a civilian plane in its first attack on a boat the Trump administration said was smuggling schmugs, killing 11 people last September. According to officials briefed in the matter, the aircraft also carried its munitions inside the fuselage rather than visibly under its wings, they said. The non-military appearance is significant, according to legal specialists, because the administration has argued its lethal boat attacks are lawful, not schmurders, because President Trump determined the United States is in an armed conflict with drug cartels. But, here's where Trump's idiocy comes back to bite him. He made a statement that the United States was in armed conflict with drug cartels. The laws of armed conflict prohibit combatants from feigning civilian status to fool adversaries into dropping their guard, then attacking them and killing them. This is a war. It's a war crime called perfidy. Retired Major General Stephen L. Lepper, a former Deputy Judge Advocate General, or JAG, for the Air Force, said that if the aircraft had been painted in a way that disguised its military nature and got close enough for the people on the boat to see it, tricking them into failing to realize they should take evasive action or surrender to survive, that was a war crime under armed conflict standards. So, anybody have a comment on that, MAGA? Anybody? Yeah, Kip Snook, we see you, my guy. We see you. We see you, Kip Snook. I know you need some attention. We see you. Why won't the president testify? Right. We don't give a shit. Anyway, I think the story is interesting. Shielding your identity is an element of perfidy. If the aircraft flying above is not identifiable as a combatant aircraft, it should not be engaged in combatant activity. Armed conflict is what the president said. By rules of armed conflict, you can't do what they did if it's proven to be true. So now we're just fine with disguising military vessels in an attempt to do what? The big bad U.S. military is afraid of drug boats, so you have to disguise them, moving the munitions inside the fuselage as opposed to under the wing, painted to look like a civilian jet. We're so afraid? Okay, just making sure. All right, I found this little sound, and I kind of like it because we make historical comparisons often, right? And I think I'm just going to play a little bit about. I found this great YouTuber. It's from the History Channel, and it talks about the French Revolution and about the historical comparisons to what happened then as to why the French Revolution started to now. So it's about like 7 minutes long. I think you'll enjoy it. You guys are smart. Actually, it's about 20 minutes long, but I'm going to play parts of it and then we can discuss. Here you go.
In 1789, France was the powerhouse of Europe. It had the continent's biggest population, a large overseas empire, and had become the hub of the Enlightenment. But the country was to be transformed and engulfed by a fierce revolution. A 10-year struggle of profound social and political upheaval that would have a lasting impact on the world. It would create shockwaves that traversed the globe, ending the Bourbon monarchy and sending shivers down the spine of kings and queens in Europe. Though it degenerated into a bloodbath during the Reign of Terror, the French Revolution helped to shape modern democracies by exposing the power inherent in the will of the people. Many of its values, liberté, égalité, fraternité, are still used as a motto today. So how did this monumental series of events come about? How did they escalate into the scenes that we conjure up today? Who were the key influential figures? In this video, we're going to cover the causes of the French Revolution, exploring how economic hardships, political injustices, and cultural shifts converged to ignite one of the most seismic uprisings in history. France's financial situation in the late 18th century was dire, and a number of ill-advised financial maneuvers only worsened problems for the cash-strapped Ancien regime. France's leading role against Britain in the 7 Years' War of 1756 to 1763 had drained its treasury, as did support of the American Revolution of 1775.
What we're listening to is a YouTube short. It's called The 7 Key Causes of the French Revolution.
To 1782. France also had a significant global empire, but too much focus on its overseas possessions meant the struggles of the French people had been neglected. In order to protect its colonies and provide proper support to the American revolutionaries, the government had a sizable army and navy to maintain, which was an enormous expenditure against its tax receipts. Now, one can never underestimate the role that bread, or rather a lack of bread, played in the lead up to the revolution. Whether the country was in the midst of an economic crisis or boom, if bread was available, then the people would rarely have cause for revolt. As the famous French philosopher Voltaire once said, the Parisians only required the comic opera and white bread. Meanwhile, a famous quote that is attributed to many different historians and personalities is, "There are only 9 meals between mankind and the revolution." It was the monarch's job as le premier boulanger du royaume, first baker of the kingdom, to ensure the food supply of his subjects. But the king had been counselled by physiocrats, a group of economists who believed that the wealth of nations was created through land development and that agricultural products should be highly priced. Under their council, the Crown had tried intermittently to deregulate the domestic grain trade and introduce a form of free trade. In late April and May 1775, food shortages and high prices ignited popular anger in the towns and villages of the Parisian basin.
Although not direct, there are lots of similarities. So just be listening for those similarities about how it's very classist, how there was exclusion from the middle class. The middle class was growing and the autocrats and the elites were afraid. 98% of the population of France at the time was considered middle class or the working poor. Those that were excluded from decision-making, those that were suppressed by the power and the autocrats and the elite. So again, a lot of similarities.
Over 300 riots and attacks on grain stores were recorded in little over 3 weeks. The wave of popular protest became known as the Flower War. Protesting crowds formed at the gates of Versailles before rioting broke out in Paris and spread to the countryside. A disastrous harvest in 1788 caused by heavy rain and a blisteringly hot summer brought about skyrocketing bread prices and famine. The French population had also grown dramatically in the 18th century. There were 5 to 6 million more people in France in 1789 than in 1720, but no corresponding increase in native grain production. The demand for bread now simply outweighed the supply. For the average peasant, bread was the staple food, accounting for 60 to 80% of the budget of a wage earner's family. Even a small rise in grain prices could spark tensions. While people lower down the social order were struggling to put food on the table, the mammoth costs associated with the upkeep of King Louis XVI's extravagant palace at Versailles and the frivolous spending of the Queen Marie Antoinette did little to relieve the growing debt.
Let them eat cake. $36 a year from American taxpayer dollars goes to support SNAP. $115 million spent in 2025 to support Donald Trump's golf outings. We are building a gold-enhanced ballroom. There is a triumph arch being built in D.C., etc., etc.
Whether they chose to turn a blind eye or were simply ignorant of the dire situation of the masses, the gluttonous and excessive manner in which members of the French court lived their lives aggravated tensions between those in power and those who weren't.
Remember, the day that the administration decided to not extend emergency SNAP benefits is the same day they had this elaborate party down in Mar-a-Lago with a massive spread of food, crab legs, lobster, sushi, etc. Everybody decked out, very Gatsby-esque, right? Keep that in mind.
Let them eat cake. More on that later. Decades of economic irresponsibility was a key cause of the French Revolution. A series of costly wars, mismanagement of the agricultural economy, and its aristocracy's extravagant spending made the monarchy appear out of touch with its subjects. Let's talk about the estate system in France. This archaic division of the French population into 3 distinct social classes, the first being the clergy, the second the nobility, and the third the commoners, was a hangover from the medieval era. Let's break this down. The highest estate, the first estate, contained members of the Roman Catholic clergy. These included bishops, priests, and nuns, among other religious figures in the country. Only about 0.5% of the population was part of this first estate.
The elite. 0.5% of the population at that time, the top of the top, right? Those that were beneficiaries of all the cheap labor, so to speak.
The second estate consisted of the nobles, often high-ranking members of the government, or even family members of Louis XVI, who represented about 2% of the population.
So 2.5% of the population into 2 distinct groups, the elite and then the super elite, okay?
Members of this second estate also owned approximately 20% of the land, which was another symbol of wealth and status in France. Now, neither the first or second estate members paid any tax.
Oh!
Yet, judging by the extravagant spending of those in Versailles, they squandered the taxes provided to them.
Oh!
The third estate comprised almost 98% of the population.
In modern terms, that 98% would be us. The working poor, the middle class. So the top two categories, again, the 2.5% of the ultra elite in France prior to the revolution was made up of people who did not pay their taxes. Interesting.
Peasants, labourers, merchants, or land workers who were toiling away on the lands of the nobles. The commoners, as they were known, worked hard and yet held the least power and bore the heaviest tax burdens. Are you starting to see how this wasn't perhaps the most stable system? I should also add that in this period, with growing industrialisation, came an emerging urban middle class, in between the peasantry and the aristocracy. The capitalist bourgeoisie, which resented exclusion from political power and positions of honour. This class of people, along with the peasantry, would be instrumental in overthrowing the feudal aristocracy in order to remake society according to capitalist interests and values. The Estates Generale, a general assembly representing the French estates of the realm, had not met since 1614. And when it did finally convene in 1789, with King Louis XVI wanting to address the growing financial crisis that France found itself in, the voting was structured so that the two privileged estates could outvote the third estate. Fed up with the estates...
Think about that. They rigged the system so that the 2.5% that represented, again, 2.5% of the population that represented the ultra elite, they rigged the system so that those 2.5% had more power than the 98%. Every revolution that I've ever read about, ever heard about, ever studied has two common principles. Food, obviously the suppression of the middle class, access to food, and the ultra rich. Those two common denominators. Again, what he's describing here, 2.5% of the richest of the rich rigged the system so that their votes had more power than the rest. 98% of the population had but one vote. They broke them down into three categories: the clergy, like the 0.5%, the 2%, and then everybody else. And those two at the top, the estate and the clergy, formed together to create an alliance so that their sovereignty, their wealth could be protected. Sound familiar?
Generals inequalities, the Third Estate broke away and formed the National Assembly. An assembly not of an estate, but of the people. It became the effective government of France. Over the next couple of years, it suspended the old judicial system, declared the property of the church to be at the disposal of the nation, published a Declaration of Rights.
Suspended the judicial system, right? Don't want the courts pushing back on this because we know it's fucking illegal. So you know what we'll do? We'll just suspend the judiciary.
For man and of the citizen, and forced King Louis XVI to sign a constitution that meant France would now function as a constitutional monarchy.
Oh.
What is a constitutional monarchy, I hear you ask? Well, it's a system of government where the king or queen remains the head of state, but without direct authoritarian power. Instead, political power is delegated to Parliament. This system exists today in the United Kingdom, Denmark and Thailand, amongst other countries. An absolute monarchy, on the other hand, is where the monarch maintains direct power over their subjects, such as in Tsarist Russia. Nearly a century and a half after the French Revolution, this Russian Tsarist regime would also be ousted by its people.
Shocker. Now they talk about the Enlightenment phase.
In the 18th century, ideas of liberty, reason, and religious tolerance traversed Europe, creating social upheaval, revolution, and change. The Enlightenment, or Age of Reason as it became known, would see a philosophical questioning of dogmatic religious institutions, social systems, and long-established monarchies. Many of the Enlightenment's most influential figures lived in France. Philosophers like Voltaire, Rousseau, and Montesquieu criticised the existing social order and wrote that people had natural rights and that rational reforms could create better societies. In an age where literacy levels were increasing and printing was cheap, these ideas spread across the continent.
So part of the oppression that the wealthy, again, similar here, right? Part of what the oppression was to deny the masses access to education. So this underground network was formed during this Enlightenment period. As more people in the masses were becoming educated, they're like, whoa, what the fuck is going on here? Similarly, right? When you are literally defunding education, when you are trying to erase history, when you are denying the existence of institutions or claiming that all these institutions are indoctrination factories just to be able to cover up your own bullshit, there's a lot of similarities here, a lot.
The rational strength of Enlightenment arguments provided revolutionaries with intellectual ammunition against the established order. The French monarchy didn't help itself. With its divine ordination now coming under serious scrutiny, the royals were seemingly incapable of adapting to the political and societal pressures that were being exerted on them. And with ongoing reports of the distasteful and insulting squandering of taxpayer money within Versailles, the gun was now fully loaded.
Squandering taxpayer money to rebuild the castle at Versailles? Okay.
As with the Enlightenment movement, there was not a unified, coherent ideology underpinning the French Revolution. There were the devout followers of Rousseau, like Robespierre and Saint-Just, who declared bluntly that every political edict which is not based upon nature is wrong. Then there were those more radical and brutal, like Danton and Condorcet, who believed their political aims could be achieved through the massacre of as many of one's opponents as possible. With these wildly differing views, the revolution would later degenerate into ruinous struggles during a period known as the Terror. The bloodshed led Madame Roland to cry famously in despair, "Liberty, what crimes are committed in your name?" Yet even in the darkest hour of the Terror, the revolutionaries were able to turn to the Enlightenment thinkers to justify their actions. For example, Voltaire once declared that governments need both shepherds and butchers. And from this, skilled orators like Robespierre were able to convince the people that terror is nothing but prompt, severe, inflexible justice. It is therefore an emanation of virtue. The leaders of the revolution shaped Enlightenment philosophy to their own ends, at times misinterpreting and obfuscating the original message. But despite these contradictions, the long-lasting revolutionary motto of liberté, égalité, fraternité against hereditary power and its dogma can be seen as a reflection of Enlightenment ideas.
This is about urbanization, information spread. Before we continue this, everybody please keep tapping and sharing. I appreciate y'all. I'm playing this because I noticed the similarities. I remember studying this. I've always been fascinated by this particular part of history. A lot of it had to do with because of the overlap, because of what France saw with the American Revolution, how much money the French spent in support of the American Revolution. A lot of similarities, a lot of things that don't necessarily line up. Revolutions don't always end well, right? We have to keep that in mind. They don't always end well. We always hear about those that are successful, but there's many that aren't, right? And this period they're going to get into in a moment, post-destruction of the monarchy, did not go very well for France for a long time. We'll talk about that as this documentary continues. Again, this is called 7 Key Causes of the French Revolution.
Thanks to growing literacy and availability of newspapers and pamphlets in late 18th century France, Enlightenment ideas could spread more widely. The press created a new culture of dialogue and debate. All values, norms, and institutions were re-evaluated and discussed by the public, that had become aware of the power of reason.
The press became powerful. It just goes to show you that the press has had such an influential role in changing societies, for the good and for the bad, unfortunately, depending on whether it's state-run media or an independent press, which is why I advocate so hard for an independent press.
This isn't to say that people were influenced directly by everything they saw. They accepted some ideas and rejected others. They interpreted things in their own way. Prints did not directly necessarily shape their minds, but it did open up the possibility of thinking differently. And most came to the conclusion that a corrupt and tyrannical monarchy that allowed no representation of the working people was not for them. Rapid urbanization.
Did you catch that part? Yeah.
Urbanization also meant that people were now living in close quarters in cities, facilitating the spread of ideas and discontent. During the later decades of the 18th century, French industrial production had grown rapidly, and throughout the country, the demand rose for urban manufactured goods, attracting significant capital and a drove of labourers to the cities. A far larger percentage of French people now lived in cities like Paris, which boasted roughly 650,000 inhabitants. It was in these cities that writers found their public. By 1789, all restrictions on the press were eliminated, and by 1793, over 400 newspapers had been founded, including 150 in Paris alone. Whether they were eulogies, political denunciations, scholarly and philosophical essays, or satirical cartoons.
So think about this for a second, right? Because of what history tells us, the more an electorate is informed, the better off they all are, the better off we all are. So what do autocrats and fascism and dictators fear the most? They fear an informed public. They fear knowledge. They fear institutional consistency. So why then do you see that autocrats go after those same publications? It's because they have to control the narrative. So one of the, the match that, so to speak, the match that lit the French Revolution was based on poverty and bread, right, and monarchical rule. But because of the birth of the free and independent press in France, in particular in Paris, the electorate became informed, people were talking, communities were built, and people were like, fuck this shit. Off with their head.
Poking fun at the monarchy, mainly Marie Antoinette, the French public now had access to the ideas of the revolutionaries and a platform in which to criticize those in power. Also, fun fact, there's absolutely no evidence that Queen Marie Antoinette ever said, let them eat cake, whilst the working classes struggled to afford a loaf of bread. The phrase could actually be traced back to the writings of Jean-Jacques Rousseau in his Confessions in 1765, who attributed it to a great princess. But this was 24 years prior to the French Revolution, when Antoinette was 9 years old and had never been to France. A very early instance of fake news, perhaps.
Oh. So again, that quote off of their heads has always been attributed to Marie Antoinette. I think it was attributed to the monarchs, right? Let them eat cake. Who gives a shit? Basically, let them eat flour. That's what they were referring to.
The American overthrow of their British colonial overlords in 1783, having declared their independence, was a catalyst for similar events across the Atlantic. When the War of Independence first broke out in 1775, the French chose to avoid any participation. They had been engaged in periodic wars with Great Britain for almost a century, but hesitated in endorsing rebellious colonies. Nonetheless, motivated by their desire to undermine Britain, France provided the necessary support that made American victory a possibility. This support came in many forms: covert supply of war material, diplomatic support in Europe, and eventually a full-fledged military alliance. All of this, you guessed it, cost the French government money. A lot of money. Money that by the early years of the 1780s, the Treasury simply did not have. Didn't stop the royal spending though. The conscription of soldiers, the maintenance of armies, and continued naval investment all took its toll on the French finances. Despite this, they continued their support of the revolutionaries and played an absolutely vital role in Washington's eventual victory. But that a republican nation could be created for the people, by the people, undermined the French monarchy's position. Not only did the American Revolution offer a practical demonstration of Enlightenment ideals in action, but it also showed that a determined population could overthrow an established order. Moreover, French soldiers who returned from America brought with them revolutionary ideas, further stirring the pot in France.
This is absolutionism, extravagance, and mismanagement.
Under the Ancien Regime, which means old order, France was an absolute monarchy, with the king having almost unchecked power. Louis XIV's reign, a century before the revolution, marked the zenith of the French monarchy's power. He controlled the nobility by hosting them at the extravagant palace of Versailles and engaging them in strict court rituals. For many decades, the magnificence of Versailles had been a source of pride for the French. A Parisian bourgeois says in all seriousness to an Englishman, "What is your king? He is badly lodged, to be pitied in fact," the writer Louis Sebastian Mercier wrote. "Look at ours, he lives at Versailles." It's true that Versailles was seen as a glorious symbol of the absolute monarch, of France's divinely ordained royal family.
So, just going to pause there briefly. We're talking about the palace at Versailles. The Fed project has been, in DC, has been labeled the project of the Fed. What's the exact, let me see if I can get that real quick. They're calling it, what are they calling it? Hold on a second. They're calling it, yeah. So officials are comparing it to the Palace of Versailles. So think about the person who's in the White House right now, who's all about lavish, who's all about opulence, who's all about fucking just gauche and his Home Depot spray painted heirlooms that are in the Oval Office now. So again, going back to my theory that he's just jealous. So when he hears Versailles comparisons, he wants that too, right? So I think it's a fair comparison when we're talking about how fucking petty our president is. So where was this? Where was I?
You don't want militarized people.
Oh, that's Joe Rogan. We'll get to him in just a moment. Where was I? Right here. Okay.
Family and of the state itself. But well before the French Revolution, some were warning that the grandeur and excesses of Versailles were terrible for public relations. From the start,
you think?
Everything was over the top at Versailles. Louis XIV, known as the Sun King, was the vainest man ever.
Really?
The royal responsible for turning what had once been a small royal hunting lodge into the most extravagant court that Europe had ever known. Entrusting Europe's master architects, designers...
Does this track now, right? A hunting camp, which was what the Palace of Versailles used to be, then was turned into this lavish, iconic symbol of wealth and opulence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Hi, Coach. And then you get Donald Trump unhappy with the White House, and then we've got to add a $400 million that we know of ballroom. It fucking tracks.
And craftsman with what he termed his glory. He spent a huge amount of taxpayers' money on more than 2,000 palatial rooms, elaborate gardens, and...
Yeah, man, well, you're right. I've seen the Palace of Versailles. It's stunning. But I'm thinking about how it existed at the time when 98% of the population had a hard time getting bread.
A vast private zoo. Concerts, multi-course banquets, balls, or parades packed the calendar. Plays and pageants were the favourites of the royal household, and an enormous amount of money was spent on everything from the costumes to the set. While most of France lived in poverty, fortunes were made and lost at Versailles on a nightly basis. Bribery was common, as were graft and embezzlement.
Bribery was common.
The royal stables were often a target of corruption. In 1775, one noble was accused of taking 120 of the king's horses for his own personal use. Louis XVI had a chance to reform the political and tax system, but the longer he chose opulence over the pragmatic amendment of the French state, the more the monarchy was seen as ineffectual and out of touch. The monarch's inability to implement reforms and its dismissiveness towards the needs and demands of the populace further eroded its legitimacy. Key events leading up to 1789 were catalysts.
Yes, Josie, I did. Thank you so much.
For the bloody revolution that would follow. Whilst the breakaway of the Third Estate from the National Assembly had signalled the end of absolute monarchy in France, the French population...
Remember, the Third Estate was the 98%. The First Estate was the clergy, the Second Estate was the nobles, the monarchs, that comprised 2.5% of the population, and then the Third Estate was us, if you will.
...was now starting to take action of its own accord. Violent protests were now raging across the French capital, especially after King Louis XVI's dismissal of Jacques Necker, a popular and reform-minded finance minister. Many Parisians saw this as a sign that the king was attempting to suppress the assembly and the revolutionary movement. The presence of a large number of troops, including foreign mercenaries, in and around Versailles, had also raised suspicions amongst supporters of the assembly who feared that the king might use force to dissolve it and suppress the revolution.
Really? Like the monarch, someone who's got, I don't know, dictatorial tendencies, might want to use force to suppress public engagement? Really? Where have I heard that before?
It was time to take action. On the 14th of July, 1789, a large crowd gathered outside of the Bastille, a symbol of royal authority and tyranny. They demanded the surrender and weapons and gunpowder stored in the fortress. When their demand was refused and negotiations broke down, the crowd stormed the Bastille.
That's why Bastille Day in France is one of their most celebrated holidays. It was the beginning of the revolution in French independence, so to speak.
The ensuing battle resulted in the deaths of many protesters and only one defender. Eventually, the Bastille's commander would surrender, but he and his officers were killed by the mob. In response to the storming of the Bastille, King Louis XVI finally made some concessions. He recalled Necker, moved troops away from Paris, and embraced some revolutionary symbols to appease the people. But news of Bastille's fall and the growing revolutionary fervour led to uprisings across the country as peasants now attacked their noble landlords. The balance of power had shifted, and the nobility feared for their safety. The storming of the Bastille served as a symbol of the people's resistance against the monarchy. It marked the start of a period of intense revolutionary activity and social upheaval that would soon see the king and many of those closest to him lose their heads and lead to significant changes in the country's political and social structure.
Here's the wrap up.
The French Revolution was not the result of a single cause, but rather a convergence of several factors. Economic hardships, coupled with deep-seated social inequalities and the spread of Enlightenment ideas, created a volatile environment.
Did you catch that? Right? So let's just play that one little piece just again. Here you go.
Cause, but rather a convergence of several factors. Economic hardships.
Economic hardship. Economic hardship. Okay?
Coupled with deep-seated social inequalities.
Deep-seated social inequalities. Economic hardship, deep-seated social inequalities.
And the spread of Enlightenment ideas created a volatile environment.
The spread of Enlightenment, in this case, in modern times, it's so the current monarch, if you will, can control the entire narrative so that the truth can't get through. Too many similarities, man.
Political mismanagement and immediate events acted as catalysts, pushing France into a decade of revolution. The outcomes were the abolition of the monarchy, the rise of radical political factions, and a series of events that would
Evan, that would be your. It'd be Y-O-U apostrophe R-E. It's what's referred to as a contraction. When you take two words and you combine them together and then you use apostrophes so you can just say your. That would be your, your would be like your dog or your house, not you are. So that says you're a Democrat, neoliberal, globalist. So English is hard, Evan. I know. I appreciate you being here, though. Thanks.
Would change the face of Europe forever. Emerging from the chaos was one man, a military commander who, through a series of fortunate events, would rise to the top, establishing a dictatorship as Emperor of France. His name was Napoleon Bonaparte. In the years...
So, again, I'll let this play out for a second. Yes, similarities. Obviously, a lot of revolutions across global history, human history, have had a lot of commonalities. Food, oppression of the middle class and the marginalized. It doesn't always end well because we did get Napoleon. I should say the French did get Napoleon out of this. But here you go. We'll let it play out.
Leading up to his eventual coup in 1799, France was in a state of political turmoil. The revolution had unleashed waves of radicalism, and the government had shifted between different forms, from monarchy to republic to radical revolutionary regimes. By 1799, the Directory, a new 5-member executive body which had replaced the National Assembly after the infamous Reign of Terror, was beset by corruption, economic instability, and military failures. France was exhausted, and many saw the need for a strong leader to stabilize the nation. Napoleon, a military general with a rising reputation, seized this opportunity. He had earned fame and respect through his military successes in Italy and Egypt, and was admired by many for his charisma and strategic brilliance. With a group of like-minded officers and politicians, including Emmanuel Sieyès and Roger Ducos, Napoleon began plotting the overthrow of the Directory. The coup d'etat itself unfolded in 2 stages. On the morning of the 9th of November 1799, Napoleon, in command of troops, occupied key points in Paris, effectively surrounding the government. He then convened the Council of Ancients, one of the 2 legislative bodies, and delivered a speech emphasizing the need for a strong government. The council voted to move the government to the Château de Saint-Cloud, effectively dismantling the Directory. Meanwhile, Sieyès and Ducos, both members of the Directory, resigned their positions, leaving the government in a state of utter confusion. The other legislative body, the Council of 500, resisted the coup and attempted to maintain their authority. This led to a tense standoff between Napoleon's troops and the council, with both sides vying for control. The turning point came when Napoleon, facing hostility in the Council of 500, entered the chamber dramatically with his troops. In a scene often depicted in history books, he faced down angry deputies and declared, "Citizens, I am here by the will of the people, and I will leave only at the point of a bayonet." This bold move intimidated the opposition, and the Council of 500 disbanded. With the collapse of the Directory and the neutralization of the legislative bodies, a power vacuum emerged. To fill this void, a new...
This is the, well, again, Napoleon presented himself or positioned himself to the people as their champion. Similarly to what a certain mustached man in Germany did as well. Point being, it doesn't always end well. It created this power vacuum. And as we've seen, when the United States' foreign policy has destabilized countries around the world, it creates a power vacuum. So think about it. What happened in Libya? What happened in Iraq? What happened in Afghanistan? What happened in other parts of the world? When there's destabilization, right, people who are bloodthirsty and or looking for power will fill that vacuum. You get the rise of Al-Qaeda. You get the rise of ISIS. You get the rise of other sort of entities, so to speak. So yes, in principle, the voice of the people, revolution is a powerful thing, but you need persons of character. You need integrity. You need people who are willing to say, we're doing this for a particular reason. Because what history tells us is, even though the impetus comes from the masses in this case, the French Revolution, right? The impetus from the masses to change and to be self-governed in a way, you get people like Napoleon who positioned himself as a champion for the masses, and then just becomes almost as corrupt as the previous leadership, in a different way though, right?
New government was established, known as the Consulate. Napoleon, CS, and Ducos were appointed as the 3 consuls, with Napoleon serving as first consul.
Of course.
Effectively making him the most powerful figure in France.
There you go.
While the more stable and authoritarian regime was presented as a return to order and a defense of the principles of the revolution, it effectively marked the beginning of Napoleon's rule and the consolidation of his power. Over the next few years, Napoleon would further solidify his authority, eventually declaring himself emperor. In 1804. Napoleon's coup d'etat of 1799 was a pivotal moment in French history, representing the transition from the revolutionary chaos of the late 18th century to the era of Napoleonic rule, which would have a profound impact on Europe for years to come.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's called, again, 7 Key Causes of the French Revolution. You guys know me. I am a serious history buff, and I always look for patterns. And yes, you can. So the American Revolution and the French Revolution had some similarities, different because, of course, they were fought across an ocean. The American Revolution, of course, fought across an ocean. The French Revolution fought within their own boundaries, but very, very similar, except the difference is that the established population in France was, again, being, oppressed by their monarchs, and they rose up literally in opposition, street to street, neighborhood to neighborhood, Bastille, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we know about the American Revolution. But like I said before, when there's a leadership vacuum, you be mindful of what the solution is, right? So Napoleon's, how he sold himself as the champion for the people, right, was that we are going to remove these corrupt monarchs. They do not speak for you. They are not looking out for your best interest. So as soon as Napoleon was able to convince the masses that he was in fact their champion, right, he declared himself emperor. So when you get the buy-in, right, just like Führer, just like Supreme Chancellor, just like President, you appoint yourself ideologically in the mind of your flock, so to speak, drainless swamp, exactly, the mind of your flock, so to speak. Just be careful what you wish for. I believe in the power of the people. That's kind of what Do Something is about, right? I truly believe in the power of the people. But cautionary tales tell us that without organization, without a commitment to a cause, they don't end well. We've got a really, but you think about the American Revolution, case in point. And we talk about it, we look back, it's 250 years old this year, our nation, but shit was popping off for years. I mean, destabilization of the colonies, infighting within the colonies, fighting over what rights apply here, what rights apply there, still slave ownership, et cetera, et cetera. And then you get these little border skirmishes. You get the War of 1812. You get the Civil War. So it was never stable. I think the Civil War was like less than 100 years after the Revolutionary War. So all these kinds of things are, I think we all have to be able to take a lesson from history, right? And I like to talk about this kind of stuff because I think it's important for many people to understand. Like, did most folks really don't know about the French Revolution and where it came from and why. We have some, high level understanding of it, the bourgeois and the monarchs and the clergy. The clergy in France at that time, as you heard, had so much power. They were at the pinnacle. They were the richest of the rich. Monarchs, the elite, that 2.5%. They literally changed the rules. They banded together so they weren't necessarily always aligned. Like the clergy and the monarchs kind of were like, yeah, we don't necessarily agree with you guys, but that's a really nice gold house you have. That's where their commonality is, right? Do you hear the people sing? Do I hear the people? Yeah, good call, Sam. So they decided, listen, we've got 98% of the population that really don't like us very much. So you and I, we need to go shoulder and shoulder here to protect our wealth. Does that sound familiar? Right? We can make modern day comparisons across the rise of autocracies across the world. Right? Autocrats do a really good job of their greed is, you're right. Autocrats do a really good job convincing their bases, their electorate, that they are their champion. That's what they do. That's exactly what Schmittler did. It's what Mussolini did. It's what Viktor Orban did. It's what Putin did in a way. It's what Donald Trump does. That's a commonality. It's a common thread between all autocrats, right? Sure, it's greed. Sure, it's corruption, but they're able to convince their masses that they are their champion. And we know that's just not true. We know that's not true. Here we go. Here's another one. There's another comment. Mr. Blonde. Hi, Mr. Blonde. How are you? Not going to pick you, Cupcake. Sorry, not going to pick you. Anyway, I just thought that was really fascinating. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I know a lot of you stuck in there. It's really, really important that we remember history. And the part that I really liked the most is that what really kind of flipped the entire thing was the press. So as soon as the citizens of France became informed, as soon as the citizens of France became knowledgeable of what was happening, some of them became more educated because don't forget the people at the top were suppressing education for the masses. Why? The answer is obvious, right? We can't let the people know how much money we have. We can't let them know that we are taking their tax dollars, telling them it's supposed to go to something else, and actually we're just pocketing it ourselves, right? These things track. Okay, I've got some folks in the request box, and I'll bring them up. Okay, great. Here we go. I don't know where you went. But okay, a little reprieve. Will disable the internet. What are the chances that Trump will disable the internet? Interesting question. What are the chances of Trump disabling the internet? Like just pulling the plug out of the wall, so to speak? I don't know. Is Mr. Blonde afraid of color? Is really Mr. Blonde? Are you afraid of color too? Oh, that's so cute. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry that you're afraid of color. Anyway, here's Jimmy Fallon. I think time to have a little bit of fun. This is Jimmy Fallon on some recent statements that the president has made.
Threatening to invade Greenland just after he invaded Venezuela, or as he calls it, Venezuela's. What's next? Is he going to go into Africa and go after Namibia, or as he calls it,
Nambia.
Or maybe Tanzania, which he calls
Tanzania.
Or maybe even Azerbaijan, or as he calls it,
Azerbaijan.
After that, he can go for the Middle East, maybe the United Arab Emirates, or as he calls it,
The United Arab Emirates.
It's not every country. Trump will probably let Saudi Arabia and Russia remain independent, or as he puts it,
Saudi Arabia and Russia will repeat your...
He should remember we've got plenty of resources here at home in places like Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Mississippi, or as he calls them,
Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi.
All of which are right here in the United States, or as he calls it,
the United States.
Again, people throughout world history, right, who have been front and center to be voices of the revolution? Comedians, writers, journalists. I've got one more for you. This is from Stephen Colbert. He's on it too. Stephen Colbert is on the I'm gonna burn fucking shit down tour. He's talking about Jerome Powell.
By the Trump administration set off alarm bells everywhere. This morning, we got an open letter from top economic policy experts saying that pressuring Powell with criminal charges is, quote, how monetary policy is made in emerging markets with weak institutions, with highly negative consequences for inflation and the functioning of their economies more broadly. The letter was signed by every living former Fed chair.
Oh, boy.
Okay, but what do they know about money? Have they ever correctly identified a giraffe on a cognitive test?
Person, woman, man, camera, TV. Yes. Okay, so I got that piece taken care of. Did we discuss this? Oh, yeah. There's this one that I have to wrap at 11:30. I've got a little bit of capitalism to do. If you want to help us bang out that goal, friends, Cash App, PayPal, Venmo, all at Factsstillmatter. I appreciate you all in advance. So this is reporting from the New York Times. This came out on Sunday or Saturday. So we often have in this space, right? We talk about these things, and I've said this before. We'll use Charlie Kirk as an example. People who think that what Charlie Kirk said about women, about black people, about marginalized communities in general, they don't think those things are racist. It's because they're racist. It's the same people that don't think that things that Donald Trump has said in the past about black people in particular or immigrants in general, they don't think those things are racist because, again, they're racist. And if I was a racist, I wouldn't admit it myself. I would say, well, that's not racist, or that's not anti-woman, or that's not misogynist, or that's not transphobic, or that's not homophobic, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, Donald Trump recently, as reported by the New York Times, says civil rights led to white people being, quote, very badly treated. President Trump's comments were a blunt distillation of his administration's racial politics, which rest on belief that white people have become the real victims of discrimination in America. I shit you fucking not. President Trump said in an interview that he believed civil rights era protections resulted in white people being very badly treated. His strongest indication that the concept of reverse discrimination is driving his aggressive crusade against diversity policies. Speaking of the New York Times, Mr. Trump echoed grievances amplified by Vice President J.D. Vance and other top officials who in recent weeks have urged white men to file... Okay. Encouraging white men to file federal complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. Yep. Hey, Erica, I just wanted to let you know that white people have been treated very badly since civil rights. Just want to let you know that.
Oh no.
Yep, just wanted to let you know. I wasn't sure if you knew. I wasn't sure if you knew that, but the president told us so. So I just wanted to let you know. Hello, by the way.
Hey, good morning. Hi, everyone. I think that is such a insane and also asinine comment to make. He's setting the groundwork, Steve, because he really, really wants to take away civil rights, civil liberties from black people. We see him doing it right now with immigrants. Right? We see him doing it with undocumented immigrants, and he's also doing it to lawfully present residents. I'm so tired. He's also in TPS. With TPS. He's also about to start doing it to people who have their green cards and who are naturalized, with instructing the DOJ to have Custom and Immigration Services bring forward 100 to 200 cases of immigration fraud each month throughout this year. So we can expect fraud, the lies basically from the government to increase there and people be deported without reason. It's all about his campaign of remigration. And the main thing about this whole, the civil rights was detrimental, bad for white people, whole thing, which is friggin' absolutely crazy, is that if he can convince people that this is true, because the main thing about humans is self-preservation, right? So if he can convince people that this is true, then he can convince people that it's okay to take away our rights. Because if you take away our rights, things go back. They revert back to how they were prior to us having those rights. Did we not have a Civil Rights Act of 1866? We had a Civil Rights Act of 1866. What followed immediately after, Steve?
Civil War.
Not Civil War, Jim Crow. Jim Crow,
right?
Yeah,
Jim Crow. And that, how long was that? Like
100 years,
roughly.
100 years. Jim Crow literally ended with the Civil Rights Act of 1864.
Right, exactly.
So that's what we have. And
1964.
I need coffee.
I got you.
Somebody give me some coffee. And I'm supposed to do the show later. Good gosh, I have to wake up. But
you'll be fine. Don't you worry. You'll be just fine. I'm fanboying again.
Okay,
but
I'll take it. I need it.
but just imagine, like you just said. So he's encouraging. I mean, don't forget, JD Vance. I think he just said last week that you don't need to apologize for being white. So, and then the president
I made a commercial about it.
Right. The president encouraging white men to file civil rights complaints with the Equal Employment Opportunity Agency.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
what?
It's oh gosh, like they really want to. I don't know why, Steve. It's just it's some of the people that look like you, bro. They just want to be oppressed so bad. And I tell people, like, oppression is not fun. Like it's not fun. It's not something that you do want to experience. It's not something I wouldn't wish it on anyone, to be perfectly honest with you. And I honestly think that we should bring back shame. And we should, man, remember when there was a time where, like, if you were openly racist, like, people would be like, you can't say that. Don't do that. You can't say that. But now it's like, if you're openly racist, they're just like, that's normal. It's like, no, it's not normal. We can't have this. It's not okay. Like, make them be ashamed again. Like, make them go back into the closet, and then we're going to lock the door on them. But yeah, this whole civil rights was bad for white people thing. It's just an attempt. Everything he does is a test, Steve. And he's trying to see how far he can go with it. Trust me, believe me, by spring, we'll be hearing about this more. And there'll be cases before the Supreme Court. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Like I mentioned this before about people who don't think that what Charlie Kirk or Donald Trump or JD Vance or Stephen Miller has said are racist is likely because they're racist themselves. Exactly.
They don't want to admit it, but that's why it doesn't feel icky to them. You know what I mean, friend?
Yep, I do know exactly what you mean. Give me 1 second.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. It just made me think about this. So you know that Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, which basically deals with how they can carve up states and redistrict them and whatnot.
Based on race.
Based on race is up for a decision in the Supreme Court. And with them putting in the Texas map last month, it kind of, not last month, in late November, it kind of looks like they are going to allow it when they do make their ruling for it, that they're going to get rid of Section 2. So while we will still have the right to vote, of course we'll have the right to vote, how our vote is counted, how our vote, basically how we're districted and who we can have to represent us, will be no more. They basically can make it so that we have no choice but to, have a Republican in a majority Democratic district, So
Yeah. I mean, I think that not that it's good news, Erica, but I was reading about this because likely they're not going to the Supreme Court's not going to rule on that decision until June.
yeah,
And at that point, it's going to be too late to make any changes to any current
for
maps.
midterms, yeah.
For midterms potentially. So that's why you got to elect more down ballot progressives.
That is true. And then we look at, so that truly is going to be very concerning. Just simply because it's going to allow them to take over, like the South, of course, because that's where we see it. They already got rid of the pre-clearance provision in Section 4 when they got rid of Section 5 in Holder vote. What was it? Shelby County versus Holder in 2013. So the burden of proof is already on the discriminated when it used to be on the states and the counties that were included within Section 5 to prove that their maps and their practices weren't discriminatory, basically weren't racist. But now the burden is on us, and it's unfortunately, it's hard to prove racism when they make racism subjective
and normalized.
Yeah,
again.
that part.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll talk your head off, and I'm not going to do it. But I want to thank you so very much for letting me up. I appreciate you as always, Steve.
Back at you, friend. Appreciate you very much. Everybody, if you don't follow Erica, please do so. Are you going live today? I'm
Yes,
assuming
sir.
you are.
Hector and I will be live at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, because we are doing the Fun and Facts show today, and we'll both be live on our own later.
Two of my favorite people. I appreciate you both very much. Thanks for
Thank
being
you,
here,
love.
Erica.
Have a great
Appreciate you.
day.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
guys.
See you later. Bye. No notes. So let me just go back to the story real quick. We have a Supreme Court decision that I'll talk to you guys about in just a second. But when asked whether protections that began in the 1960s, spurred by the passage of the Civil Rights Act, had resulted in discrimination against white men, Mr. Trump said he believed, quote, a lot of people were very badly treated. Quote, white people were very badly treated where they did extremely well and they were not invited to go into a university or a college, he said, in apparent reference to affirmative action in college admissions. So I would say in that way, I think it was unfair in certain cases, even though affirmative action benefited white women more than anything. But those are just details. He added, quote, I think it was also at the same time, it accomplished some very wonderful things, but it also hurt a lot of people. People that deserved to go to a college or deserved to get a job were unable to get a job. So it was reverse discrimination. Mr. Trump's comments were a blunt distillation of his administration's racial politics, which rest on the belief that white people have become the real victims of discrimination in America. During his campaign for president, Mr. Trump harnessed a political backlash to the Black Lives Matter and other protests, saying there was, quote, a definite anti-white feeling in this country, and he joined his base in denouncing what he deemed to be, quote, woke policies. The Trump administration has claimed that eradicating policies that promote diversity would shepherd in a merit-based society, but for civil rights leaders, Mr. Trump's remarks showed that the perceived plight of white men was the true focus. Man, Derek Johnson, the president of NAACP, the nation's oldest civil rights organization, said there was, quote, no evidence that white men were discriminated against as a result of the Civil Rights Movement, the Civil Rights Act, and efforts to rectify the long history of this country denying access to people based on race in every measurable category. Within hours of taking office, Mr. Trump ordered the dismantling of diversity, equity, and inclusion offices that were responsible for addressing systemic discrimination against minorities and women. And last year, he ordered federal agencies to halt enforcement of core tenets of the bedrock Civil Rights Act. He's gone on to equate diversity with incompetence and inferiority, and cast himself as the protector of white people, both at home and abroad. Asked on Wednesday whether his immigration agenda was aimed at making the country whiter, Mr. Trump said, quote, we want people that love our country. So the president says things like that to a base that is filled with racists, right? Not every MAGA is racist, but racism is not a deal breaker for them, ultimately. So there's that. So when you're telling that group of people that we only want people here that love our country, and in the same context, you're talking about how white men have been aggrieved fair, Minnesota, fair, that white men have been aggrieved since the Civil Rights Act. What does that tell the racist base? Black people don't love our country. Brown people don't love our country. That's what he's telling his base, right? Yeah, not overtly racist, but there's always covert. Good point. It's very simple, Mr. Trump said, who has carved out exceptions to his crackdown on refugee admissions for mostly white South Africans. I want people that love our country, he said. Carrying out Mr. Trump's agenda is the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which was formed in 1965 under the Civil Rights Act. The commission's chair, Andrea Lucas, issued a striking video message last month underlining the agency's new posture. Quote, "Are you a white male who has experienced discrimination at work based on your race or sex?" Ms. Lucas said in the video posted on X, quote, "You may have a claim to recover money under federal civil rights laws. Contact the EEOC as soon as possible. Time limits are typically strict for filing a claim." I shit you not. The EEOC is committed to identifying, attacking, and eliminating all forms of race and sex discrimination, including against white male applicants and their employees. In the video, Ms. Lucas pointed white men to the commission's FAQ on DEI-related discrimination, which notes that DEI is, quote, "a broad term that is not defined in the Civil Rights Act." The EEOC Commission is the nation's primary litigator of workspace discrimination and for decades has been a resource for minorities, women, and other groups who have historically faced discrimination. But Ms. Lucas has endeavored to make it one of Mr. Trump's most powerful tools against DEI, with a particular focus on remedying perceived harms against white men. Now, I said this earlier today, and I will say it again. Two things. First of all, white men in America, white conservative Christian men in America, are the biggest pussy-ass bitches I have ever met. White men in America, especially, so I am a privileged white man in America. I check many boxes except for one. I am white, cis, hetero male. The only thing I'm not is Christian. If you add Christian to that, that group of people are the most privileged group of people perhaps to ever exist in human history. I'm not talking about monarchs. I'm not talking about bloodline. I'm talking just about that. White, cis, hetero Christian males. The fucking pinnacle of privilege. The absolute fucking pinnacle of privilege. And you feel like you've been aggrieved? You pussy ass bitches? You pussy ass bitches that are bothered by fucking nail polish and Bud Light and rainbow flags and paper masks and musicians and art and education and healthcare and science and the weather? Pussy ass bitches. All y'all. Ms. Lucas' tweet was boosted by Stephen Miller, Mr. Trump's top domestic policy advisor, and Mr. Vance, who shared videos and a series of tweets railing against DEI last month. The vice president also shared an essay that blamed diversity initiatives on depriving white men of opportunities. A lot of people think DEI is lame diversity seminars or racial slogans at NFL games. Mr. Vance wrote last month on X, in reality, it was a deliberate program of discrimination primarily against white men. I didn't know that. Labor and civil rights lawyers said Ms. Lucas' video was an escalation in the administration's attacks or tactics to use civil rights laws to remedy what it sees as the disenfranchisement of white men. Again, disenfranchisement of the most privileged group of humans who've ever existed? Where's the disenfranchisement? Pussy ass bitches. All y'all. Quote, I've never seen in the history of an agency a blanket request to only one racial group and gender to contact the chair's office directly to raise concerns about discrimination, said Jenny R. Yang, a former chair of the commission. Quote, that raises significant concerns. My fucking goodness. A couple of things that are breaking before I leave. Let's see. This is from The ICE agent who fatally shot Renee Good on January 7th in Minneapolis suffered internal bleeding to the torso following the incident, according to 2 U.S. officials briefed on his medical condition. What? Internal bleeding to the torso. Okay. Oh, okay. It's good to know. And then the Supreme Court, I think they came out with a decision. Hang on one second here. Where is it? And then we'll wrap. Supreme Court revives GOP congressman's absentee ballot suit that could spur more election litigation. Supreme Court on Wednesday backed a Republican congressman from Illinois who was challenging a state law that allows mail ballots to be received after Election Day, a decision that may make it easier for other candidates to challenge voting laws, even if they ultimately win their election. The decision, written by Chief Justice Roberts, was 7-2. Interesting, with 2 of the court's liberals dissenting. Okay, got it. So who were the 2? So 2 of the court's liberals they dissented. Who were the? Interesting. Candidates have a concrete and particularized interest in rules that govern the counting of votes in their elections, regardless whether those rules harm their electoral prospects or increase the cost of their campaigns, Roberts wrote. Their interest extends to the integrity of the election and the democratic process by which they earn or lose the support of the people they seek to represent. The Congressman Michael Bost challenged an Illinois law that allows ballots to be received up to 2 weeks after Election Day, as long as they are postmarked by the election. Bost sued in 2022, claiming that the Illinois law ran afoul of a federal law that sets a uniform day for federal elections. Bost did not raise claims of fraud at the Supreme Court, but President Trump repeatedly railed against the expansion of mail-in ballots during C-19, falsely blaming them for the 2020 election loss. So there you go. So Jonathan Ross, pussy-ass bitch. Just comply is one of the most dangerous phrases we've normalized. It sounds neutral and reasonable and law and order adjacent, but it's never actually about peace or safety. It's about obedience. And obedience has always been demanded most loudly from the people most harmed by power. And I don't know who needs to hear this, but Jesus did not comply. Preach. Thank you all for being here today. Who are we going to raid, guys? Who's out there? So, again, guys, historical comparisons. Like, if you don't want to make, if you think it's a stretch to compare the French Revolution to other points in history, I don't think it is. I don't think it's a stretch. I think it's more similar than many of us want to believe, right? I think we have to remind ourselves of a few distinct similarities. It's the impoverished, right? It's the people that are struggling the hardest because of basic elements like food on the table, and a disgust and a disdain for the corporate class. And in our system, it's the 1%. Oh, Ash is live. We'll read Ash. Thank you all for being here. Best mods on TikTok, no doubt about it. You guys are the smartest chat on TikTok. If you haven't yet visited our merch store, go check that out. If you've not yet subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do that, and also subscribe to Twitch as well. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Again, go raid Ash. Ash Collecting Men's Tears. I'm not sure exactly her handle, but head on over there and you can find her. Okay. I love you all. Appreciate you all. See you tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock Eastern time.